This meeting of the Senate Finance Committee for April 25th will come back to order. We have two bills yet that we're going to finish before midnight. Senator Dibble, we start with yours. We went through the spreadsheet, and we didn't have time for questions. Does anybody have questions about the spreadsheet? Does anybody have amendments? Senator Dibble does.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let's see, here we go. So I have the A45 amendment, but I would also need to first request that the A46, is that right?
A51.
I'm sorry, the A51, I'm sorry, there we go.
Okay.
Make my things mixed up.
So
yeah, so the A51 would need to be first amended to the A45.
And that needs to be passed out.
That is going to be distributed.
And I could explain it here.
Perhaps that is, hold on, we may need to.
We don't have a 51.
You don't have the 51?
Well, we can take, can you take another amendment first then?
Or can we just copy it?
Yeah, we can get it copied quickly, but
Sure.
can you do any of the others, like you have an A53?
Mr. Chair, I could offer the A46.
A46, which is also not in the packets, but it's here. Yes, Senator Drahan.
Just for clarification, are we doing the A45 and then amending on to the A45? Or
I gather we were going to do that, but I think we're going to do A46 first, which is not related to A45.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Jasinski is aware of the A46 and supports it. So, Mr. Chair, what the A46 would do, thank you, is it would just simply create a later effective date for an initiative of Senator Howe and Senator Johnson Stewart's in the bill that has to do with requiring the Department of Transportation to implement what is it called?
The ARS.
There's two similar concepts, and I'm getting them mixed up.
Okay.
Can we have him come up here and talk about it?
Where is it?
I'm sorry, I just can't.
So it's a policy by which the Department of Transportation would be required to reach pavement sustainability goals. What is it
Okay,
called?
Mr. Greenfield, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Dibble. This is the asset sustainability ratio.
Yes,
so
the
that
asset sustainability ratio.
the A46 amendment delays it until the beginning of fiscal year 2030.
Okay.
And the reason being is there's some, we want to delay it to evaluate its utility and its implications. If we implement it immediately, it has some pretty significant, perhaps some pretty significant consequences for the existing surface transportation improvement program, or state transportation improvement program, as well as reaching into some of the other expenditures that the Department of Transportation would need to pull back on in order to pay for what they believe is the cost implication of this proposal. So we're putting it out a few years to figure all those things out.
Senator Pappas moves to A46. Is there further discussion? Senator Dibble, there is no controversy over this that you're aware of, right? Because we're kind of a lighthouse right now. No
Sorry.
Controversy you're aware of on this amendment, I assume?
Mr. Chair, no. I mean, the stakeholders we talked outside the chamber. They weren't thrilled, but they understand that this is an effort to maintain the position in the bill as we go to conference. And so they were comfortable with making the change.
Senator Pappas moves to A46. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Next amendment.
Is the A51 ready?
A51, I think we're getting that one copied now. Can we do A49? I see there's an A49. Is that yours?
Yeah, so Senator Jasinski or Senator Pappas have several amendments. We can go to those. Senator Jasinski or Senator Pappas, do you want to offer the A52?
Go ahead. Which?
A52? To take out the US Highway 8 bonding?
Mr. Chairman, while it's being passed out, I could explain. I think I don't remember if I brought this up with the committee or just with yourself and Senator Dibble, but we can't have anything that impacts GO bonds in this bill because then it would require a higher two-thirds vote. So it's a modification, we call it an extension on some funding, and we can put that in the bonding bill because we have a big modification section.
Okay. Senator Pappas moves the A52, correct? Okay. If there any discussion on the A52? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. We now have the, what, do we? We now have the A51 amendment.
So, Mr. Chair, if someone could move the I suppose we would have to move the A45 amendment and then move the A51, which is an amendment to the A45.
Senator Pappas or Jasinski? Senator Jasinski moves the A45. And then Senator Dibble, you're saying that we would move another amendment to that amendment?
The A51 would then need to be moved.
We've got A45 here now and A51 as well. Senator Jasinski moves A51 is an amendment to A51? Excuse me, A51 is an amendment to the A45? Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so. Sorry, if I get my organized here.
And Mr. Greenfield, do you want to describe the amendments or whoever?
Start it.
Ms. Boyd, this is it's kind of a mix of some adjustments to policy and adjustments to finance. This amendment to the amendment is a fiscal matter.
Okay. Ms. Boyd, go ahead. If you want.
Mr. Chair, members, thank you. The A51 is just, the A45 is a technical amendment that I can walk through really briefly. The A51 is a technical piece that we missed getting into that, and the copies are already made of the A45, so we did it as an amendment to the amendment. It's just a citation change for account being created in the bill for eligibility for that funding. Yeah, that's wrapped into the A45, which if you'd like, do we have to vote on the A51 first, and then I'll walk through the A45?
No, we'll vote on the A51 after you explain the A45 as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So very briefly, lines 1.2 to 1.7 are changes to the county state aid and municipal state aid appropriations to account for the electric vehicle surcharge revenue to HETDF that was added in the Transportation Committee, as that's passed through revenue to those funds. Most of the first part of this technical amendment are riders of appropriations that are already assumed in the base. They were inadvertently not added to the first version of the bill, and these are the riders to comply with budget rules to make sure that they're being carried forward. So these are already in the base, and those are most of pages 1 through the top of page 5, and I will not walk through them unless anyone has particular questions. There are also some technical changes just to make all the appropriations consistent on page 2, deleting words and changing words. Let's see. And the riders go through the top of page 5, and then starting on line 5.8, there are some conforming and technical changes related to policy provisions in Article 3. I don't know if we need to walk through those, but if we do, Mr. Greenfield can handle those.
Does anybody want her to walk through any more detail of these changes?
And also, do we delete?
If not, Senator Jasinski moves the A51 be as an amendment to the A45. Is there any discussion on that technical amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Now on the A45 as amended. Any discussion? Not a lot.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Dibble.
I'll just also mention, in case Senator Jasinski notices, the window tinting piece was signed into law by the governor, so that's taken out in the A45.
Thank you.
Senator Jasinski moves to A45 as amended. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. A45 and 51, we've done. A46, I think we've done. No? Yes. I think we did that one. That was the first one we did. A53, I'm told we have an A53.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the A53.
Senator Jasinski moves A53. It's not in the packet, so they're distributing it, but if it's good explainable one, you can explain it while we're...
Mr. Chair, and thank you, and I believe Senator Dibble knows about this one. We talked about it. This is a request from Senator Nelson. Back in 2023, there was money allocated for a study on TMO in her district. There was a remaining amount of $45,000 that is remaining. We'd like to extend that out so they can use that towards implementing the plan. I've talked with Senator Dibble about it. I believe he's familiar with it, and I'd ask for a green vote, or I'd ask for your approval.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Dibble.
Yes, so Mr. Chair, yes, this is actually something that I worked on in conjunction with former Senator Sheila Cascaden in the last biennium, and they have some money left over, and so they want to continue on the work of developing the concept of a TMO in southeastern Minnesota. Senator Nelson was also aware and supportive at the time, and so this is a joint effort on the part of the committee.
Is there further discussion on the A53 Jasinski amendment? If not, he recommends we vote green, but you could vote aye if you prefer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. A49 we already dealt with, I believe.
No.
No, we did not. Okay. I just saw it in the wrong pile.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd offer the A49 as long as we're talking about it.
A49 amendment is, I believe, in the packets, at least I have one. Can somebody explain the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe I can. This is, it deletes micro-transit grants language in the bill. This is a Senator Carlson bill in committee, and he's supported, from what I understand, of removing the provision according to the lobbyists. The providers don't want to be limited on what they can do with the funds. I think right now it explains it has to be used for equipment. They would like the flexibility to use it for what they need. So I would ask for approval of that as well.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this was a Senator Carlson initiative. We spoke with him this morning about possibly taking the provision out. Just to expand a little bit, it would be a designation of metro area sales tax funds that would be designated for the opt-out transit providers for the purpose of continuing on with the pilot that they've been conducting for the past couple of years on the provision of microtransit services. This particular idea in the bill in front of us came forward on Senator Carlson's initiative in conversation with the disabilities community. And the opt-out transit providers had some technical issues with kind of how the funds were restricted, and it's probably too much to work out and figure out all the technical issues to make it work in the way that they would prefer. So I did give Senator Carlson the assurance that we would return to this conversation in the near future. I think it would be germane for us to work on this in conference because it wouldn't be new funding, it would be from existing funding, the metro area sales tax. And if the opt-out providers feel like they need the additional funds to continue on the microtransit pilot, but in the way that they want, that would include not just capital needs, but also their operational needs, then we can do that at that time.
So Senator Carlson is aware that you're removing this.
Yeah, and he's supportive of removing it and wanting to continue to work on it.
Right. Is there any further discussion on the Jasinski A49 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Are there further amendments? These are the only ones I'm aware of.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to offer the A47 amendment.
Senator Jasinski offers
know.
the A47 amendment, which is being distributed. You can begin explaining it, or if we need to look at it first, you can.
Nope, I got it. So, thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Dibble. I've been working great with Senator Dibble, and this one he might not like as much as the first two, but I'm going to give it a shot here tonight. So, what this does is, a few years back, we had designed blackout plates that have become very, very popular. Since I've been concerned about leakages coming from the HUTDF funds, we tried to put this in to get the money to go to the HUTDF fund completely. DVS does not want to give that money up, but this is a compromise, I believe. So what it would do is actually split the amount. So the amount that they projected or they budgeted to get, they would get, and anything over and above that we would go to the HUTDF funds. So it basically splits it. The $30 annual fee, instead of going 100% to DVS, would go 56.25% to DVS operating account, and then 43.75% to the HUTDF fund. This is also in the House Other Bodies bill, so I'm trying to get it lined up so it can save us some work in the conference committee, and I would ask for you to vote for this one as well.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Jasinski, for the idea. And while we always like to love up the HUTDF, we're going to have a conversation in a few minutes about moving those funds in the other direction. So I would argue against this particular provision. Those funds that go into the driver and vehicle services operating account really are for the purposes of supporting drivers and vehicles and the kinds of things that the Department of Public Safety through driver and vehicle services does, which are myriad and very important and very close to, touch the daily lives of our constituents. I will accede to the fact that the blackout plates were more popular than anticipated. The fund is fairly flush at this time, but we also make a lot of demands of that agency, and I don't think that will be true for too long, because we talk a lot, we have them in front of us, we're asking them to do a lot of stuff, and that's going to cost some money, and these resources can help pay for those things.
Further discussion on the A47 amendment. If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion does not prevail. Next amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would offer the A50 amendment.
A50 amendment, Senator Jasinski, and that's being handed out as well. You can explain it now if it's something we don't need to look at to hear the explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Dibble. Again, overall, I think this is a very good bill, although on the last day of our meeting and the last amendment, there was an amendment put on that scares me, and it should scare a lot of us here. What it does is it redefines the definition of highway purposes. Again, this is a constitutionally dedicated money that goes to our roads and bridges. An amendment was offered that would expand the definition of highway purposes to include light rail, transit, active transportation, and greenhouse gases. So again, we've been concerned about leakages out of this, and it goes way back to Senator Newman about money being taken and being used for non-highway purposes. So this would delete the section that redefines highway purposes. I've talked with Senator Dibble. He does understand my concerns with this, and I think he also has some concerns, but I just want to bring it up and talk about it because it does. Again, our HUTDF fund needs more money. We're at about $1 billion a year short for maintaining and constructing our roads and bridges. That is defined out of a report. So again, this goes after that. If we open it up to transit and to active transportation and greenhouse gases, it really dilutes the amount that goes to our roads and bridges. And as you know, Minnesota has the 5th highest number of roads, and it'd be taking money away from that fund to other things is concerning to me. So I will leave it to the committee to discuss and turn it over to Senator Dibble.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as a matter of fact, I had the great pleasure of chairing an entire year-long committee to discuss at the request of Senator Newman, and then I got nominated to be the chair with the House counterpart, Representative Petersburg, to discuss the whole subject of highway purpose a few years ago. So I want to recommend to everyone a wonderful way to spend your summer. It's bi-monthly conversation about highway purposes. And while Senator Jasinski and I do agree on a lot of things, and I've resisted a number of suggestions for ways to use the Trunk Highway Fund and the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund, there is some daylight between us, and I think that really the conversation is about what is the transportation department for, and what is their essential purpose, and what is a highway purpose, and what are our streets and roads really for, and that's where we find some difference of opinion. Is it for all users of the transportation system, all people who are going to be getting to where they need to go along those highways and byways, or is it for a more narrow purpose relating to, of course, automobile traffic, and is it for asphalt and pavement, in between the curbs, or do we have a slightly more expansive and holistic view of serving transportation for all communities and all people? And so that's what the amendment aspires to achieve in terms of conversation and taking a look at how the Department of Transportation plans and designs and what they invest in. And so that's the reason the language is in there. So I would resist removing the language at this time. It might not be perfect, but I would like to have that conversation, that debate, and promulgate these issues into the conference committee.
Okay, on Senator Jasinski's A50 amendment, Senator Draheim and then Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Dibble. And I just kind of reflect back to my district, and we have a lot of highways. My district goes northwest to Jordan all the way to Iowa, around Senator Francis' district. A lot of highways. And, my biggest community is Fairmont. And their bus service ends at like 5 or 6 at night. And they can't afford to keep it open past that. And most of my communities don't have any transit. So they rely on the highways and the township roads, et cetera. And when we dilute the different funds, which we've done a lot of for different uses, and between me and Nick's district, we have Highway 22 being repaired right now. And, they've cleared trees for almost 100 yards across for a bike path along the highway, using funds that, to me, should be used to maintain our highways. And, most of the rural roads don't have shoulders or much of a shoulder. And I know there's different types of roads, but we have a lot of farm equipment on all types of roads, and a lot of busing. Almost all the kids bus to school, and here we are cutting away at that pie a little bit more, and it's very concerning for outstate Minnesota. And I just hope that as you move forward with this, you will consider the whole state and all the funds that are available. And when we take something away, it does affect other pieces of the pie. So thank you.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me just, let me just go back to the Constitution, Article 14, Section 10, taxation of motor fuel. And it says the legislature may levy an excise tax on any means or substance used for propelling vehicles on the public highways of the state or on the business of selling it. And then it says the proceeds of the tax shall be paid into the Highway User Tax Distribution Fund. And it seems to me very clear that the idea was we were going to tie the tax to the use. And a more appropriate means of achieving the outcome that Senator Dibble has proposed in his bill would be to provide it as an amendment to the Constitution rather than trying to change it legislatively. Because many of the uses and that have been defined are not directly related to propelling the vehicles. Particularly when on our highways, and I'm thinking particularly our active transportation. I don't see many bicycles on 169 or 35E. Now they may be on some of our smaller county roads and that type of stuff, but not our major arterials. And we have desperate need to make sure the infrastructure we've already invested in is covered. And one of the reasons we wanted to put a dedication for the sales tax on auto parts and repairs was because we were projected to be below the funding needs for the infrastructure that we already had. And I know that Senator Dibble is proposing a pause on that, but continuing to drain that fund from its primary and intended constitutional use through statute, I think, is inappropriate, and I would have rather seen the proponents of this bill put forward a constitutional amendment so we can ask the people of Minnesota, is this what you think you should be paying gas tax for? That's what we've done for the lottery and the legacy bill. That's what we've done for a lot of different things. And I strongly support the A50 amendment. I think we need to be very focused, and I think we need to be true to the intent of the Constitution.
Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I get quite concerned with the language that's in the bill. A couple things that can, excuse me, a couple things that concern me. First of all, is that we're taking the sales tax money and putting a stop on that for, I think it's through 2029 or close to that. And then now that we're going to change the description of what the highway user fund tax can be used for, I think in rural Minnesota that's going to be a real issue. My district starts right at Nick's district, right at the North Mankato, and goes all the way north and west to the South Dakota border. We have a lot of roads just like everybody else does, but it takes a lot to keep these roads up and stuff, and so I don't think that rural Minnesota, we're in a position where we can do much of this sharing. When it comes to some of these trails we talk about, there can be grant money requested from LCCMR and some of those places too to get some of that money. So I'd really like to ask people to vote for this. I really think that it's keeping the description that's in the bill and then changing the sales tax on automobile parts and accessories and putting a hold on that for a couple of years, I think is going to be devastating for rural Minnesota. So I'd ask that we vote yes on the A50 amendment.
Further discussion on the A50 amendment. I wanted, Senator Jasinski, I kind of remember always wondering about the constitutional dedication of the taxation on motor fuel, how some of it gets steered into grant and aid trails for off-road vehicles and so on, which definitely takes out of the highway user fund. But Senator Dames.
I can answer that for you. The money that goes into the off-road vehicles, that money is what is the estimated fuel usage. So it's the tax, the fuel tax that's estimated to be used by the off-road vehicles that's going to that, right, wrong, or indifferent, but that's where it's going, that's where it's coming from.
And Senator Dames, but by that definition, then the people who are using off-road vehicles for farm stuff and so on, they're not using it for that purpose. For those who are, I kind of wonder about a lot of gasoline sales that are not for roads, but it is clearly used in many cases for non-highway purposes, and in this case, it's clearly within the highway right-of-way and everything, so we have differences on that. But Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo on Senator Dames again, that is a calculation both for boating as well, goes to our boat launches and things like that. So it's gas tax that's paid at the pump that is actually not used on the road. It's either boats or snowmobiles or four-wheelers or all those things, and that was calculated out to what the estimated amount is that goes towards those other items. Again, I just think there's multiple other ways that we can fund this through transit with metro area sales tax, with other funds that are going through the motor vehicle sales tax. A percentage of that goes as well. We have Met Council has a lot of money. They actually have so much of their money they're borrowing it to MnDOT, and a lot of those things can be done. As Senator Dames said, rural Minnesota is really going to be hurt by this because we are in desperate need of work on our roads and bridges. As I've said before, we have the 5th highest number of roads in the nation, and to start diluting this fund is concerning. But I will say that I do want to thank Senator Dibble as far as overall in the entire year on the Transportation Committee. We took many of our bills. We got bill hearings, did amendments, and we've got a lot of things done. So it is a very good bill, and I'm very happy with it. This, however, is one of those sticking points for me. As Senator Dibble said, we do have some daylight between us. But I'm going to work with Senator Dibble. So at this time for this, because it's late, I'm going to withdraw it now because we could talk about it for hours, and I'll continue to work with Senator Dibble, and hopefully before we get to conference committee, we can make some changes and work on it there. I don't foresee this going through the other body because I know it's not an item that's going to be is very supported there. So I'll continue with that. I'll withdraw the A50, and thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jasinski withdraws the A50 amendment. Senator Friends, your hand is up. Is it about that amendment or is it about something else?
It is about the amendment, Mr. Chair, and members, sorry not to be able to join you, but I want to just throw my voice in there. Thank you, Senator Jasinski. The people in my district would share your concerns, and the idea that you and Senator Dibble would be able to continue the conversation, I appreciate. Thank you for withdrawing the amendment, and count me in for that conversation if I can help. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Friends. Are there other amendments? Other comments or discussion of the bill? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Jasinski kind of led into my question as we go to line 114. Hold on a second. I had to move my cursor here. I'm sorry. Line 114.24, section 81, metropolitan loan authorized. Maybe it's just the banker in me. I've got a lot of questions around this provision that aren't really laid out in the agreement. We are, if I read the spreadsheet right, and where did I see that? Ms. Boyd, how much are we allocating to Metropolitan Council? I'm trying to find that on my spreadsheet, and I'm struggling here. I saw it a minute ago.
I can answer the question.
Senator Dibble.
So, Mr. Chair, so this would make use of up to $250 million in metro area sales tax funds for transit to be loaned to the Department of Transportation as they work on the improvements to Highway 65 for the purpose of preparing that corridor for future bus rapid transit, which would be known as the F line once it is built and comes online. And then those funds would be repaid by the Department of Transportation back to the Metropolitan Council. So the idea, Mr. Chair, is to make sure that the improvements that would need to occur along Highway 65, which we've of course heard a lot about in the last few years, and that was a major achievement for the folks who live in that part of the metro, because Trunk Highway 65 is very, very congested. The improvements to that corridor will be multimodal, and so to get those BRT elements done at the same time, so they wouldn't have to come in later and tear everything up and create mayhem and havoc a second time through when they're ready to get going on implementing the F line.
Senator Pratt, continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Dibble, are all of those, is that entire $250 million state funds, or would that include any federal grants as well?
Senator Dibble.
So, Mr. Chair, the $250 million would be sales tax for metro area as far as I know, but maybe Ms. Boyd. I mean, at some point, there will probably be federal funds that come in for some other aspects of the capital improvements for the F line itself, because that's typically what happens. There's a FTA state partnership. But at this point, I think it's envisioned to just be metro area sales tax proceeds for transit purposes. And Ms. Boyd can contradict me or correct me or fill in the gaps.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. This section of statute is an inclusion to the statute on the uses of the regional transportation sales and use tax that was enacted 2 years ago for the Met Council. So it's from those proceeds.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Senator Dibble, because you mentioned Highway 65, and it's not mentioned, and it just says one major transitway project. It doesn't say which one in the bill. So I appreciate knowing which one it is now, because I agree, having driven up that road, it is very congested. But so we implemented the Metro-wide sales tax, which is basically increasing the cost for every Scott County family. And we have so much money in that fund before we can use it that MnDOT is now becoming a CDFI.
Senator Dibble.
So, anyone can have their perspective, which I respect. What I like about this proposal, this is the governor's proposal, I'll just mention parenthetically, but I support it because it's representative of the Department of Transportation and Metro Council, Metro Transit, having these kinds of conversations. I can cite a number of instances when Metro Transit or MnDOT did some roadway improvement. There was no conversation about what other kinds of modes might address the corridor congestion, mobility needs, access to transportation, et cetera, much less any talk about what future improvements there might be. And we have seen instances where significant roadway projects have been undertaken, and then later Metro Transit comes through and does their improvements, and it never quite makes sense. I mean, the best example, of course, is Hiawatha, which received major improvements, from downtown on a diagonal all the way out towards the airport. Giant bridge was built over Lake Street. Everyone knew that probably in the not too distant future, light rail was going to go into that corridor as well. The roadway wasn't going to be able to address all the mobility needs through that corridor. Yet they didn't build that giant expensive bridge to be able to receive light rail transit at that time. And so then, the Blue Line comes around and the Hiawatha corridor comes around, and they had to build a whole separate adjacent adjunct bridge. And it would have been nice if they had been able to coordinate that project all at the same time.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Dibble. So as we talk about the loan agreement, including repayment terms, are we allowing the Met Council to charge MnDOT interest on this loan?
Mr. Chair, it says the loan agreement, including repayment terms, must be mutually agreed to by the Council and the Department of Transportation. I'll turn to Council to respond if that would assume or presume that interest would be allowable. Maybe Mr. Shetman can come up here and help. This is their idea.
Welcome to the committee.
Mr. Chair and members, my name is Judd Shetman. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Metropolitan Council, and I feel I missed the last part of that question as I was conversing with MnDOT. Oh, it was about interest.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, we do believe that this would include the ability for the council to charge interest on that loan. It would be something that we would work out with MnDOT. I want to compliment Senator Dibble for his explanation of the initiative, and that what we are trying to do is make sure that as we are building the F-line ABRT project through the Highway 61 area, or 65 area, that we are able to synchronize that with MnDOT in order to make sure that when we build and construct that project, currently MnDOT has that scheduled to be reconstructed 2 years after we finish the F-line project, and so this is allowing us to do those together so we can do them seamlessly and not tear up that corridor a second time just a year or two after we complete the F-line work.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an oral amendment, if I could.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to, on line 1.14.27, under clause 2, make a change that would say the council is authorized to make a zero interest loan to the Department of Transportation.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, I appreciate your idea there. As I just mentioned to Senator Dibble, we will work with MnDOT to make sure this works out best. However, the legislature wants to move forward with this, and if it's the position of the Senate that it be a no interest loan, we'd be happy to work with the legislature on that as well.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we've seen a lot of interagency transfers. This is the first time I've seen one where we're going to actually have one agency of government charge an interest rate to another agency of government. And Mr. Shetman, I think we've discussed some of the concerns around the Met Council, and Senator Dibble and I both sat on the Met Council Reform Task Force, where I think we heard a number of concerns from residents of the metropolitan area that may not always trust the promises that are made here unless we put them in the statute. And I believe that we should be very clear going on to the floor that we expect this to be more like an interagency transfer. You can work on the repayment terms on what that looks like and the timing, but I don't think the taxpayers of Minnesota should be funding interest payments from one government agency to another.
Senator, first, Ms. Stangl, could you restate the oral amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In the bill on page 114, line 27, after the first two, insert make a zero interest. So it would say the council is authorized to make a zero interest loan to the department.
Senator Dibble on the amendment.
Mr. Chair, I would regard the amendment as friendly.
Further discussion on the Pratt oral amendment? If none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Further discussion on the bill. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Dibble, I want to highlight a couple things. There are some really good things in here. I do want to thank Senator Dibble for that, as well as Ms. Boyd, Mr. Greenfield, Tom Cheetah, and of course Dave Frazier, who's worked on this as well coming up. There's some good things. We're taking back $185 million back in to the general fund from the Northern Lights or the NLX, which I think is great. We're raising some EV surcharges to $200. It's been $75 for many, many years, which will help backfill some of those things. We've been working on trying to get that increased. We're getting some State Patrol updated aircraft. We've also efficiency savings. There's a 15% efficiency savings that are actually going to go directly towards corridors of commerce now. So you can actually track that money. It's about $90 million per year that will go back to that. And then also increasing the fees for deputy registers, not the fees, but they're getting compensated for the non-fee transactions. So if a transaction starts online and the local deputy register has to finish it, they actually get reimbursed, which is very important. I've been talking about that for many years, so thank you, Senator Dibble, for including that as well. I know the governor had it in his recs. I think he's been listening to me complain about it for many years. I'd still like a fee sharing as well. Unfortunately, just with the language from the highway purposes, I just can't vote for it here today. I'm going to continue to work with Senator Dibble. Hopefully we can get that improved. But today I cannot vote for this just because basically that one reason. By expanding the highway purposes definition, I'm very concerned about what's going to happen with those funds and not going towards roads. So I'll be a no, but I again want to thank Senator Dibble for his work and working with us, and thank you.
Senator Dibble, final comments on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me echo my thanks to Senator Jasinski. We work together as friends and as partners on this committee, and appreciate all the good work that he does, as well as all the committee members, both Democratic and Republican. The work of Mr. Sheeta, Mr. Gillis, Ms. Ethier, Mr. Will, these two, Mr. Greenfield, Ms. Boyd do excellent work. Be a lot more things to come on the floor too, but the other things I'll just add in the bill that I'm happy we're able to do was to maintain the funding for Greater Minnesota Transit, maintain funding for active transportation, not take the full zeroing out of general fund appropriation to Metro Transit. I should mention that we do support the money that's needed to create the suicide barriers on the Washington Avenue Bridge at the University of Minnesota. And we support some of the metro area transportation management organizations that do very, very important work for very little money to make sure that people can get where they need to go, especially as it relates to their employment. And so I think it's a bill that carries a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different ideas. And we do our work very collaboratively in the Transportation Committee. And the other thing I'll mention, just in terms of a broad sweep of policy initiatives, is really trying to create a transportation system for all users. I talk about that a lot, and I think we take some substantial steps in that direction with the initiatives in this bill, including designing our municipal state aid and our county state aid highways in a way that's responsive to community priorities, values, and needs, as well as our overall statewide transportation system that's responsive to the statutory mandates that they have that sometimes look great in their planning documents, fall down a little bit in their implementation and the investments and the design selections that they make. So I feel really, really good about this bill. It's a good next bill after the incredibly historic bill that we passed in 2023.
Thank you. Senator Pappas.
I'm sorry, Senator Dibble, I didn't remember seeing this on the spreadsheet when she went through the spreadsheet. The Washington Avenue pedestrian bridge you just mentioned, how much was that? And was it given to the University of Minnesota or Hennepin County?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That'll be for $9 million, and that'll be an appropriation to the University of Minnesota.
That's, Mr. Chairman, that's confusing to me because the bridge is owned by Hennepin County.
Well, Mr. Chair, it's kind of a joint project between Hennepin County and the University of Minnesota. You know, they're partners in this. So, you know, if it has to go to Hennepin County, you know, we can make that change. But right now, it's going to the University of Minnesota. It's, you know, kind of an initiative of theirs. But they have you know, University of Minnesota has brought a lot of money to Hennepin County to do a lot of the improvements that are unique to the university purposes. Mm-hmm. So they might give the money to Hennepin County, but, you know, in controlling the money, they would have some control over some of the design elements and some of the particulars.
Okay, great, thank you.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also Senator Pappas. Also, just to define, that comes from the metro area sales tax, so it's not coming from Hennepin County or not coming from HUTF. It's actually coming from the metro area sales tax. So that's the reason I was supportive of it.
Senator Dames.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Dibble. If that is changed over to Hennepin County, will it be set up so that it can only be spent on that bridge for that purpose?
Senator Dibble.
Mr. Chair, oh, absolutely, Senator Dames. This is a very, very important thing that we have to get done.
Right, yes, it is.
We've been dawdling on that too long.
Yep.
Thanks.
That's why I was curious if it would be locked in.
Yeah.
Because I would hate to see it be used for something else. So thank you, Senator Dibble.
Thank you for the question. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't want to step over Senator Dibble's final comments, and I appreciate all the work he's done. And I especially appreciate the work on the Washington Avenue Bridge. I think we've had a number of suicides and attempted suicides in that location. It's an unsafe bridge, and And regretfully, and how this came to many of our attention is one of my constituents took her life off that bridge. And I also want, I've thanked him before, and I want to thank him again in public, Senator Dibble, who helped put together a temporary fix on that bridge last fall when we weren't in session, because it is such an important project. And I trust that he is going to make sure that this is a project that it gets done and not diverted, these funds aren't diverted elsewhere.
Thank you. No further discussion. Senator Wickland moves Senate File 2082 as amended be recommended pass and instruct staff to make technical and conforming changes. Is there further discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Senator Dibble. Thank you, all the staff involved in that, and hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
One more
members.
bill on the agenda. And staff, we will recess for about 2 minutes for them to change, give us the next bill and amendments packet. So we're in recess for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. In front of you is Senate File 3054. And, you know, I just wanted to briefly talk for the next 45 minutes about why this bill is an important bill within the state of Minnesota. And so during, these are some economic insecurities that we have and some threats to the Medicaid funding. The dismantling of disability support systems, every budget provision that you see in front of you has been weighed against the impact on seniors, people with disabilities, and the poorest of the poor, not corporations or business entities. We really did something that I first of all, John, I want to thank you, Senator Marty, Eric Naumann, and thank you, Senator Murphy, for sticking to your guns about saying we want to look at these tough times and we're going to do that in a fair and equitable manner. And I appreciate this committee's commitment to that, which then sets us in a pretty good position to then counter what else is out there. And so in those times, Senator Marty, as you know, you go back to 1998, 1999, 2003, 2005, 2007, 2011. In particular, I know Senator Abler at the time in the House had to cut $1.8625 billion from human services. And Senator Marty, those days of Linda Berglund over here in the Senate, still resonate in my mind listening to just the pain that was associated. And because when you look at what government should be about, it's the poorest of the poor, people with disabilities and our elderly. And John, you know, 25% of our population is 65 and older in Minnesota. 1 in 5 people in the state of Minnesota live with a special health care need. 1 in 10 is chronic. So you look at the mere need at that and you say, okay, we have an obligation to do the right thing. And so with that, I could go on, but I'm not going to. Will tell you the process. There are 4 amendments that I need this committee to do to set us this budget in the balance that I promised you I would stay within my target, right? And that's what we did here. And we would be equitable across the board to try to be fair, to set us up to actually have a good Senate position. So I have these 4 amendments, Senator Marty, I want to do. And then Mr. Raymond will give you an overview. He'll go line by line. I'm kidding. He'll give you a high-level overview just about what that means to us and the strategy on spending growth, the strategy on workforce and people accessing services, and our strategy on just looking at what is needed within the human services bucket. So with that, Senator Marty, I would like somebody to move the A43 that's in front of you, and I can tell you what that's about.
Senator Mohammed moves the A43 amendment. Senator Hoffman on the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Marty, Chair Marty, and members. It's a technical amendment that's based on the technical and clarifying changes that Council identified and worked with the Department of Human Services to draft. There is no new policy nor cost with this amendment. There are large sections which contain rewritten sections that delete large portions of obsolete language or extensive technical changes best displayed as all new languages. If you look at pages 7 to 11 and 12, there's a different approach to achieving the same cancellation of the opioid epidemic response fund allocation for safe recovery sites and ongoing transfer that were passed by our Human Services Committee. Page 11 also contains a fix to an omission in Senator Rasmussen's Senate File 626, which is related to the initial salary of the new Direct Care and Treatment Commissioner, which is also embedded in this, both the finance and the policy bill. So with that is the A43.
Is there discussion on the A43 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Are we doing amendments before we go through the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Because they're relevant to the spreadsheet.
Yes.
We
Okay,
requested
thank
we
you.
do them before the spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Pappas. So the next one, there are going to be 4, Sandy, that we need to do that. 2 of them are policy. The 3rd one is a budget line, which it pulls it in. The 4th one is the budget that actually pulls us in so we become target is spot on. Does that make sense to you? So the A45, and what I'll need before the A45 technical amendment, if you pass that out, is I can go through that and then ask for somebody to do an oral amendment on there, and sure. I can give you what that is.
Yes, Senate Council can take it. We have the A45 in our packets. And Senate Council?
Mr. Chair and Senator Hoffman, I believe you would like to delete lines 2 and 18.
Mr. Chair, we would like to strike 1.2 and 1.18. That is an oral amendment, if somebody could offer that.
We will incorporate that into the amendment, which Senator Mohammed will move the A45 with those changes incorporated. Deleting lines 1.
Chair?
Wait, Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Can I get the, I think that they're stapled backwards. I think
They're
it's-
stapled differently, yes.
Got it.
Must be a lefty. What lines again are we deleting? I'm sorry.
1.2, page 1, lines 2 and lines 18 we're deleting.
Thank you, Chair.
And that'll be incorporated into the amendment as Senator Mohammed moves it. Yes, Senator Pratt.
So just to make sure I'm looking at the right amendment and the right lines, both lines were lines that say delete shall and insert may?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Hoffman, on the amendment.
Thank you. It's a technical amendment from the department for issues that they identified primarily with the governor's proposals included in the bill, those that we brought into the bill. Most changes relate to the effective date. So if you look at it, you're going to see mostly effective date. It also contains a policy change to the governor's EIDBI licensing proposal, relation to providing licensees certain appeal rights. On page 4, line 13, the amendment deletes a section that's related to the governor's proposal for modifying SUD treatment coordination provider qualifications. There's a compromise version of this proposal, and that will be in our human services policy bill, so that's going to go there. And also the EIDBI work, Senator Abler has brought together multiple people within his charge, and absolutely will have a DS Abler a mini omnibus for the Senate floor when we get to that point, because they're still working on that. But this lies in within where we need to be right now, Senator Marty. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the A45 amendment with those changes incorporated? No further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Next amendment, A44, I gather?
Mr. Chair and members, you have the A44 amendment in front of you. If you have that, I can go ahead and tell you what that's about.
Senator Mohammed moves A44, and yes, we have it in front of us.
Mr. Chair and members, this amendment contains the changes in the bill that I have requested since it left the Human Services Committee. It's tradition, we always get the bills out, and if they're waiting on responses from the department, which there's, it happens, right? Every year we've come in front of you, and if it doesn't make it, you're not going to see it in the bill. If it does make it, you're going to see it in the bill. And these are those that did make it from our committee that I've asked, requested since that left the Human Services Committee. And so we're going to go through those, and I'll be real quick. Permitting the area agencies on aging to give them greater flexibility in how they use state funds to provide meals to seniors, going back to our first vision. Removing a licensing fee increase. We are limiting Senator Mohammed's proposal that covers swimming lessons for people with disabilities to children under the age of 12. That was something, and we thank her for bringing that forward, and actually there's ongoing conversation with that as well. This just gets us in line with where we're at today, John. We include a modification version of Senate File 2651, which modifies the qualifications for min choices assessors and allows the counties to contract with hospitals to perform assessments of patients in that hospital. It's actually faster in some cases than it is for them to go back to the county. Restoring the governor's original language that are related to rate exceptions under the disability waiver rate system, which, as you know, we've been in constant work with that since 2013. Removing the substantive provisions of Senate File 3246, which would have permitted the CFSS consultation services to be an optional service under the agency model. This removed those provisions, Mr. Chair. The Disability Services Technology and Advocacy Expansion Grant on page 6, that is not new. It's just merely relocated. So if you see that, you go, oh, it's new, it's not, it's just relocated. It does contain a new requirement that the grant be administered in conjunction with the Department of Administration's STAR program, which you guys are aware that's been around. We included Senator Housechild's Senate File 1916. There's a single administrative structure and a delivery system pilot program for non-emergency medical transportation services. And if you want to know, that's one of the 17 required Medicaid required services that states must do. Finally, we included 2972, Senator Dibble's bill relating to the sale, purchase, and ownership of nursing homes and assisted living facilities by for-profit entities. It's a transparency piece that we've been talking about for many, many years, and we think Senator Dibble finally got that right on there. And that's the A44, Senator.
Is there discussion on the A44 amendment? Senator Drahan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Hoffman. Can you just describe where these pieces came from? Is there a Senate file that most of this is from?
Yep. On the, which ones are you talking about? On most of those, every one of those has a Senate file, Mr. Chair and members, and they should be noted in there. So Senate File 2651, Senate File 3246, Senate File 1916, and Senate File 2972 are all included within that list, Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim. Do you have one in particular that you wanted to ask about?
I think the Dibble one.
Yep.
That the provisions for, I think it was Senate File 2972.
Yep, it's actually, Mr. Chair, Senator Draheim, yeah, Senate File 2972, this bill was one of the first fiscal notes that we were waiting for. It's that private equity ownership, the transparency piece that we've been talking about. And what we asked in that bill, do you want me to explain what we're asking for in that? At least 120 days prior to the transfer of ownership or control of a nonprofit nursing home or a nonprofit assisted living facility to a for-profit entity. There's been some stuff in the past, and you can ask Glenn Gruenhagen about it. The Commissioner of Health and the Commissioner of Human Services of its intent to transfer ownership or control to or for that profit entity. And within that, there's a bill brief that has that more information on that. But that basically gets to it. There's that 120 days. It's like, you know, who is it? Where are you at? Where are you going with it? And that's really that piece that we've always wanted to know. Transparency. It gets transparency within those people that are doing what we pay them to do, right? Those are our dollars. So is that helpful?
Senator Drahan.
Thank you. You know, I did it make all its committee stops? I have not. You know, so we're putting requirements on the sale of an entity, and the requirements that we're asking, are they the same requirements we impose on nonprofits that now you're imposing on a for-profit company? Because, you know, my point of view on this is we don't have enough beds, period. And now we're going to put restrictions on, and, you know, that's what I hear and what I see in my area. There's nowhere to go. People are driving a long way. So that's where I'm kind of my point of reference.
No, and Mr. Chair, no, thank you for that. That's the balance of, we knew 12 years ago that 65 and older was going to be larger than our K-12 education system, right? And we knew, and we have a structure in Minnesota that allows for-profit, nonprofits. You're seeing all these places that are developing. But the one thing that was always missing, and we can give you anecdotal story after anecdotal story of you know, like I can give you an example of, you know, Coon Rapids, and I can give you an example of Elk River, and give you all these examples in Arlington or Faribault. I can give you those where it would have been nice, not just nice, but I think it's an obligation to know what's the transparency side on that. Commerce and both Judiciary, when we presented, we got them to waive the requirement because we wanted to make that part of our omnibus conversation. And so both on April 1st, Commerce, and on March 24th on Judiciary, and actually March 24th, the day that we were on the Senate floor with the introduction on it, we had those conversations with Judiciary, and they said, it sounds like you guys are doing what you need to be doing. So those are, both those committees did not need to hear that piece on it. So.
Senator Draheim.
So was there a hearing in your committee then on this? And did we have input from stakeholders?
Mr. Chair and Senator Draheim, yes, a lengthy hearing on this one. I think our committee was kind of split at one time on it, on what to go with it, but we all acknowledge that there is that issue that sits out there, Senator Draheim. And it would be nice to have some transparency about your dollars You're our dollars that are going, because it is. When you look at Minnesota's investment into human services, right, Senator Draheim, you'll appreciate this. You look at $25 million, both in health and human services, is the state investment, and then the feds match that with $30 billion, right? So you got $55 billion of investing in our poorest and of our poor, our people with disabilities, and our elderly. And so we felt within our committee structure that this would be something that's there. Is there something within that language that you see of concern that you'd like to see addressed, Senator Draheim? Because if I'm missing something, I'm always, you know that, but I think our committee, it was a lengthy conversation. Senator Mohammed remembers that day as well, so.
Further discussion?
Thank you.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you. You know, I guess my concern,
Yeah.
Mentioned it numerous times on the floor today, is that even with your adjustments, and I appreciate your adjustments and your position with the long-term care facilities, in my district, we're still cutting them over $14 million. And most of these facilities are barely hanging on, and a lot of them have kind of turned beds back. So we don't have the capacity in my district, and half of these homes are barely hanging on. And now we're going to staple investment into more beds. That is my concern. And so I hope you reconsider. I cannot support the 844 as drafted. I appreciate the little reduction in mine, because it went from 15.4 to like 14.1 and change, something like that. But that's a big hit for mainly poor communities, way below, most county income. So very, very concerning. So thank you.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Hoffman, I just wanted to echo and build upon some of Senator Draheim's concerns, but I've got a question. The bill was referred to Commerce. Can you tell me what sections originally caused the bill to be referred to Commerce?
Mr. Chair? Yeah, I don't know, Eric. Okay. I mean, I honestly don't know. I just know that the provisions that were there, I went and said, do you guys really need to hear this? This is our further conversation on. They said, no, we're okay. You guys go ahead and keep it within your jurisdiction and keep doing what you're doing. So,
And
yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I've never known the Minnesota Senate to direct the Attorney General to do something and not have it be reviewed by judiciary. I've never heard of that waiver, Senator. I'm just trying to figure out. And I'm sure you got it on your bill, but I'm trying to figure out how the underlying bill did not have to make a stop in judiciary. Can you explain that?
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Senator. And it was really about keeping that within the confines of what we know as human services. I know you used to say to me, I only get to quote federal law twice. And I started to bore them about, why this conversation is there. And it was keeping it all within our house, Eric. That's where it all came down to. But again, I say to you, if you see something that's amiss in there, but I think it's pretty clean, I'm always open to, at the end of the day. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Well, thank you, Senator Hoffman. And if I remember right, when we served on education, I said you could only quote one federal statute per question. But Mr. Chair, I am concerned that this hasn't been through the Judiciary Committee. I had a brief conversation with Senator Dames. There was no review of this in the Commerce Committee. It was just re-referred back.
Yep.
And Mr. Chair, I'll pause my comments because I see Senator Dames raising his hand.
Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, I could understand possibly why it wasn't heard in Commerce, which we didn't hear it, but I think that it was, like you said, it was waived, that it didn't need to be heard. But I guess I'm surprised it didn't need to be heard in the Judiciary Committee, considering the language in there, that I'm surprised that wasn't, taken over there.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, I remember when we were doing paid family and medical leave, or no, it was the
$178 million, John Marty still
no,
owes me.
no, it was the unemployment for seasonal workers in schools.
Yeah.
And it was coming out of the unemployment insurance fund, and we decided for expediency that it didn't need to go through the Jobs Committee, which had jurisdiction over the UI trust fund.
Yeah.
And I made the point in committee, and Senator Champion was good enough to hold a hearing to say, just because we want to have this move expediently doesn't mean we have to, or we should, skip steps along the way. And I believe we've skipped a step along the way here with the underlying bill. Had the underlying bill gone through all its committee stops, Senator Hoffman, I don't think we'd be having this discussion. But what I can see from what's online, it did not.
Correct.
And that's a big concern that I have. I also have a concern in this amendment, Senator Hoffman, that we are limiting, the ability for someone to buy these nursing homes. I've sat on the board of a nursing home, and we are operated by Benedictine Health, which is a nonprofit. Everything's good. But for many of these small communities, if somebody's going to come in and buy it, the option is to sell or close. And if we put these restrictions that limit who may buy these facilities, or we make it so onerous that we disincent some of these organizations from buying these facilities, the option is to close. And we're going to have elderly adults not be able to stay in their communities by their family and friends. And quite honestly, Senator Hoffman, even worse, they'll end up being displaced. Mr. Chair, I can't support this amendment with this piece in it. I think, one, there are too many questions. Two, I think there are unintended consequences. As Senator Hoffman said, they feel like they've gone through and built this up to cover all the bases, but I continue to find more and more concerns with it every time I look at it. And I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done on this. I want to make sure that we've got enough beds for elderly people. As many of you know, I just lost my dad, and he was in assisted living and memory care, and thank God we could have him near us. I would hate to think that he would be displaced and moved miles and miles away because the underlying organization had to sell and they couldn't find a willing buyer because we put too many restrictions on who may purchase that facility. And we would be losing beds and therefore fewer opportunities to find those open opportunities to put him. Having just gone through this, I just can't vote for this amendment.
Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Hoffman, for putting Senator Dibble's bill in your omnibus bill. I think you're right. We had an extensive hearing in our committee, and I think Senator Dibble has done an extraordinary job of working with folks. And I think when we talk about this issue, I think it's easy and simple to say, it's either the nursing home will close or we're going to allow private equity groups to buy it up. But I think we have we have a job as legislators to make sure that when we are allowing folks to buy up, private companies to buy up these nursing homes, that the quality of care is there, that these folks are taken care of. And I think research shows that that has not been the case. And we heard from folks who were impacted in Senator Dibble's district that the care that they are getting has been 0 to none. And at times they've been harmed in these nursing homes. And we're not talking about, a private business coming in and buying up a nursing home and taking care of these folks. We're talking about folks who are coming in just to make money and not give a crap about the people who are living there. And that's who I care about. And that's who I think this is targeting. And the goal of the entire thing is transparency. You want to do it? You want to buy it up? Cool. We just want you to be transparent. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so I just want to thank you for bringing this and for putting it in. And thank you, Senator Dibble, for all your work on it.
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me just clarify some things. First of all, to Senator Mohammed's point, the HHS did release a report that showed just how bad the private equity is regarding in healthcare, right? That was this report, and you can Google that thing. The National Leading Age Organization, we have a Minnesota chapter, right? That's part of the long-term care imperative, but the National Leading Age Organization told McKnight that the association agrees that private equity investments can have negative effects. Let me just be very clear about that. Can have negative effects, and that's June, but if you really look at the ownership, the data that's provided, there's some valuable insights that are along with that. We looked at that, but I think what you really want to listen to this, Senator Marty, is that we talk a lot about transparency every day, holding businesses accountable that access money through publicly funded programs. I don't think a day doesn't go by when we hear that, Senator Marty. And so why wouldn't we do businesses that profit off seniors and long-term care? They should not be exempt from efforts to address the misuse of taxpayer money. And believe me, that's the scary thing, Eric. And so if you're looking at that, and if I'm missing something there, if we're missing something there, by all means, bring it, because I think you and we've had conversations and going back to education days about misuse of money. And so that's kind of like, that's where I think our committee was on that. And if there's something that's missing in there, then bring it. But I think, for that case, this is what we have. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Senator Dames.
We have nursing homes out there that we talked about earlier. These little communities are struggling to keep these nursing homes open, and they don't have a lot of options. And if we want to say that a nonprofit can't buy it, we're closing those nursing homes. And if that's what we want to do, then let's admit that that's what we're trying to do. For God's sakes, I don't understand why we'd be doing that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, though.
Yeah. Why we would do that to a small community, but it appears that's what we want to do. No, I'm just wondering, Senator Hoffman, if you'd be interested in working on some language before this gets to the House, that in cases where there are no nonprofit buyers, that we could have an alternative to sell it to a profit buyer. That would beat not having a nursing home. Yeah. And that's what this comes down to. And people at this table don't want to believe that. That's okay. But get your head out of your sand. Be realistic about this, because it is happening. It's happening more than you think. I've lost several nursing homes in my district, and we're not done. And things like this just does not help.
And to that point, I'm glad. I love it when Senator Dames starts. You look at in Arlington, right? I mean, Sanford Health, who's a pretty big organization. They know their stuff. They went in and took over a facility in Arlington and realized they couldn't compete. Here's the issue. They could not compete financially against, and they talked about, this is what they told me when I was hanging out there in Glenn's backyard. They couldn't compete against the cities on the pay stuff, right? So now you're talking about the payment equity piece that's in there. But yet at the same time, we have 53,000 job openings. This is where the system conversation comes in, Gary. So absolutely, if you want to get, by the time we get to conference committee on this, I remember when the LCC, I said, Gary, you should be part of this conversation. I'm giving you the same extension here. If there's something missing there, then by all means, if you're seeing that, then bring it. But when I go out to Cokato, Minnesota, you know where Cockatoo, Minnesota is there between Dallas on your way out there, Darwin, you know, the big yard, what is that thing, the ball of twine? The things that they struggle with, it seems to be across the system, it's the same thing. And it ends up coming down to how are we going to get people to want to work here? And you look at that and you say, okay, now I'm going to sell this. And we've had question after question. When we sell something, we should be as transparent because it's our taxpayer money that's going into that pot. And that's the thing I think that drives me the most, regardless of who owns it, right? We look at that and saying, where's the transparency? Because we want to make sure one thing, this is about safety and well-being of our seniors. Because we knew 13 years ago, wait, who was here 13 years? You were. Remember that report that was done by the demographer that showed what our aging population was going to be and our special needs population at the same time. So that conversation's never going to stop happening, Gary, but I'm absolutely, as you know, I'm wide open to that conversation all the time. So with that, Senator Marty.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Hoffman. You are driven by the desire to serve the people of Minnesota who live and work in these facilities. I respect that. You know I do. I share the concerns. I think it would be put this way in my district. I'm fine if we talk about how to improve the quality of these facilities. I'm very nervous if they're going to close when they might have had a buyer. And happy to hear that we're willing to continue this conversation. I also have some general sort of marketplace questions. If we restrict buyers on types of facilities, does that affect the people who want to own them that aren't private equity? Does that affect the price? What are we saying? And are there any implications if we start going around saying, you can own this, you can get the benefits and the cost. By the way, we're going to restrict where you can sell it when you're done wanting to own it. And to Senator Dames's and others' point, these closures are a real issue. So as I said to Senator Mohammed today earlier on the floor, if our choice is a great owner and an okay owner, I agree, we want the great owner. Those of us in greater Minnesota are concerned about the choice between an owner we're not thrilled with and no owner and the doors closed. So looking forward to continued conversation. I have real concerns about this provision on private equity. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Senator Hoffman.
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's really the notice. I'm not hearing anything regarding the notice, information, and affidavit. I'm hearing the same concerns that we all have about are these places going to close. What we're saying here is really regarding the notice, information, and affidavit requirement, which is at 120 days prior. That's what it really comes down to. It's about that transparency piece. God, I feel like we're in the committee again having this conversation. You guys got a few more hours of this because it was going. But that's constantly what these guys are bringing up, John. We are not going to finish having these conversations because 10 years from now, when all of us, well, you'll still probably be here because, you know, with the 20, what was the amendment, 20 years or something? You'll probably still be here, John. But this conversation is still going to happen even for the next 10 years beyond. So, no, I appreciate this conversation. And again, Eric, Gary, I'm looking at you saying, if you think something's missing in here, by all means, you know, bring it. But I'm not seeing it. So you let me know. So thank you.
Senator Drahan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Hoffman. Couple things, you know. I think the goal is to increase capacity. We've kind of talked about that. And the other issue I have is treating a for-profit different than a nonprofit. If there are bad things being done, we need to correct that. And it shouldn't matter what the ownership type is. But last November, we had a report come out from the Center for Rural Policy and Development. Mm-hmm. And talking about the capacity of nursing facilities that closed. And since 2005, 92 facilities have either closed or stopped offering nursing beds in Minnesota. And I can go on and give you stats. It really doesn't matter. We don't have time tonight. But I do. In rural Minnesota, in the 7 counties I cover, there's 8 nursing homes in 7 counties in my district. Yeah. People have to drive quite a ways. And as Senator Pratt said, what he recently went through, it was so nice to have that time he had with his dad somewhere where he could obtain access and get there in a timely fashion. We can't hop on 494 and drive 15 minutes and be somewhere else in most of rural Minnesota. So that's my concern.
Yeah.
And, you know, I haven't talked to all of these facilities, but I've talked to quite a few of them, and they're all barely hanging on. Barely hanging on. So as this moves forward, please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Senator Hoffman.
I don't get any sleep based on that. When you really look at that, it's that transparency. So thank you for the reminder. That's why we do what we do, and I appreciate that, absolutely. So,
Senator Pratt, then maybe we can vote soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I certainly want to bring this to a vote too, but I want to make sure that we have a good and thorough discussion in this committee about the amendments that are coming forward. I can't remember who said it, but I think we're focused on the wrong thing here, Senator Hoffman. And Senator Mohammed, I didn't realize that there was a real example in Senator Dibble's district of where this happened. We've had a number of conversations in this committee and other committees about fraud, waste, and abuse that's been perpetrated by nonprofits. And I have been reminded by Senator Champion, and I expect him to jump in here any second now, that not all nonprofits are fraudulent. Not all nonprofits are bad actors. And I would say the same thing about some of these private equity firms. Senator Hoffman, you captured my thought exactly. Regardless of who owns it, we could see these problems. We could have a nonprofit own this facility and have the same problems that we saw that inspired this bill.
Yep.
And yet we're going to go ahead and pick on one ownership type when a nonprofit may be doing the exact same thing and paying their executive director $400,000 a year. We don't know. I mean, they could still be a nonprofit and they could still be trying to make that type of margin so that they can pay their executives exorbitant salaries. In fact, Senator Drangham had a bill in the Jobs Committee that would say that, it limited the amount that a nonprofit could, executive director could make based on the governor's salary. So that's the concern. As we've talked about limiting the number of buyers and focusing specifically on this one type of ownership, it doesn't mean that we're going to solve the problem. It means that we're going to, because that same problem could happen in a different ownership structure. And that's the piece. We need to be focusing on the regulatory oversight of these facilities rather than the ownership type.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Hoffman.
Absolutely, to his point, there are two things that you bring up in there, right? This one specifically is just about the transfer, the sale, right? There's that. But you also bring up the second point, which I think is probably the biggest one, which I'd love to have in my jurisdiction, but it's not in my jurisdiction. It's the OIG, right? That's the Office of Inspector General for the Department of Human Services. Should be in my jurisdiction, Eric, but it's not. So there are 4 things that should be in my jurisdiction, and they're not in my jurisdiction. But I love where you're going with it, because that oversight piece of it, that's something that we all, it goes back to, well, I can start with the airplanes and the airports and, the child care. I mean, it's just that conversation keeps going. But I think you're 2 things. This one really talks about the transfer of ownership or control of a nonprofit to the for-profit entity. That's all this one does, and it's just specifically lays that out. If you're seeing something in there, you got to bring it to me. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not hearing you, but I hear you on the other piece of it, which is that oversight side of it, which is across the board, which we need to do and be consistent about it, right? That's constantly, because again, you're looking at $25 billion of Minnesota money put on the table, $30 billion of federal money put on the table, saying take care of our poorest of our poor, the people with disabilities and our elderly. And we got to have a better oversight on that. I'm absolutely hearing you on that one. So thank you. Senator Martin.
Finally, Senator Mohammed on the 844 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep it short. I think that Senator Pratt brought up some really good points around transparency and oversight, and I think both of those things are really important, both for the public sector and for our nonprofit organizations. I think the bill that he's referring to Senator Draham's, which is whether CEOs of nonprofit companies can make more than the governor, is one that I've told him that I agree with and will vote for if it ever comes forward. I think no matter what, when it comes to any industry, we have to make sure we do our due diligence of regulating it. The problem here is there is no way to regulate an oversight that is possible if we have no idea who controls the entity. That's what this is about. It's not about controlling whether they can buy up these nursing homes or not. It's not about whether they are allowed or not. It's just simply be transparent. And it's not just about Senator Dibble's the nursing home in his district and the real stories that we heard in committee. It's also about the stepmother of Senator Gruenhagen, who talked about her story and what happened to her. That was really sad. It's about the millions of stories that Senator Abler shared in his committee. This was one of those policies that cross-section of people who do not agree ideologically had real issues with, not because they want to get rid of nursing homes. They want to make sure that the quality of care that the most vulnerable people in our communities are getting are protected. And it's about transparency. I thought we loved that here, but I guess we don't.
Further discussion, 844. If not, Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the passion that Senator Mohammed brings to this discussion. I would say we have the same ownership and control problems with some of these nonprofits as we would with a for-profit. But, you know, we've got to manage these at the site level. And Senator Hoffman, I think you've kind of glossed over. You agreed with me on the regulatory oversight, but you haven't yet been able to say that, yes, we need to have that same level of scrutiny for the for-profit and the nonprofit. Going back to what Senator Draheim said, we need to have a level playing field. And I would disagree with Senator Mohammed in the fact that I think we have the same concerns in the nonprofit community as we have in the for-profit community, but attacking one and not the other doesn't solve the problem. And that's why I think that this provision still needs some more work rather than moving forward in this bill and in this amendment.
Senator, did he say glass over? Did Eric, did you say glass over? I love that. Did you say glass over? Is that what you did? I thought I heard you say glass over. No. You know what? No, don't lose that, because the thing, I think there's two buckets here, Eric. This one specifically is the transfer of ownership or control. That's it. So imagine that. Then, but the issue you're bringing is one we've been talking about for years, and it's like we need to do a better job of that, right? And I mean, there's so many systemic pieces in that. I mean, if you got 6 hours, I'd love to sit around and figure that out. But this specific piece is just on the transfer. Sorry, Senator Marty, but I love talking about this because we're talking about real lives here. We're talking about people. We're talking about, 53,000 job openings. We're talking about those folks that need this stuff, and this is a great conversation. So thank you. Thank you very much.
No further discussion. All those in favor of the A44 amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. No. Motion prevails. Further discussion. Oh, you have another amendment. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I know I can't call for division, but could I call for, I felt that was too close. Sure. Could we have a roll call on that vote?
We can do a roll call on the vote. What? Or you have to reconsider? You can have a division. I mean, you're always allowed to call a division.
Well, Mr. Chair, we had some members on in remote vote by voice, and we wouldn't be able to do it by division. So count, I'd like to reconsider and have it and have it roll called.
Senator Pratt wants to reconsider so we can roll call it.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, if this amendment goes out, we got a problem. We are going to absolutely have a devastating human services problem in the state of Minnesota. So rather than doing that, you could divide it. Eric, if you want to look at, you want to divide that. Nobody's shaking their head. You don't want to divide. I mean, I'm just saying, if this thing goes and it gets on, then, you know.
Mr. Chair, can we vote?
Let's just vote.
Thank you.
We will reconsider. All those in favor of reconsideration, say aye.
Aye.
Motion prevails. We will take a roll call on the A44 amendment. Staff will take the roll.
Senator Marty.
Aye.
Senator Friends.
Pass.
Senator Pratt.
No.
Senator Champion.
Aye.
Senator Dames.
No.
Senator Draheim.
No.
Senator Howe. Senator Jasinski.
No.
Senator Mohammed.
Aye.
Senator Murphy.
Yes.
Senator Pappas.
Yes.
Senator Wickland.
Yes.
6-4.
Senator Friends.
No.
6-5.
There being 6 ayes and 5 nays, the motion does prevail. Further discussion, you have one more amendment, Senator Hoffman, the A.
47, Mr. Chair, as you throw, that one goes around. Thank you very much for the conversation, everybody. I absolutely appreciate it. It's an amendment that contains all the changes to the numbers in the appropriations article, which y'all have in front of you, to match the changes in all of our amendments, including the A44, that conform the bill. So this basically takes all that language, conforms the bill to the spreadsheet, and that does this. And that is also a few new riders that are on there, dedicated appropriations to the Department for additional legislative concerns, and appropriation to the Beauty Well Project, and a grant that Beltrami County for children in the county's child welfare system affected by the opioid epidemic. I don't know if you're familiar with Beltrami County, but 75% of that county is not a county that can raise property taxes very easy. Beltrami County fell outside of the realm and really need it. So that, you see those, that includes all those. What you have then, that should have the package in front of you as you expected us to do, which is to give you a targeted number. So with that, Mr. Chair, is the A47. If somebody would move that, I would appreciate it. Then we can go to Kyle.
Senator Mohammed moves the A47. Discussion the A47. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair. Just real quick, I see there's a lot of new entities in here. Just wondering if they were individual bills. Did they get a hearing? Were there 990s polled? Is there any background on the entities? I recognize a few of the names, but not all.
A487. There you go. Yeah, we can do that. Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Senator Hoffman.
I'd love to go through this thing. So if you look at the Single Administrative Structure and Delivery System Pilot Program, that is the national, that is the NEMT. So that's the medical transportation, non-emergency medical transportation, which, if you are familiar with the 17 federally mandated services states must provide, this is one of them. So,
Chair, I guess we're short on time. I was just curious if they were heard.
The answer is yes. Yeah.
All of them were heard is all I need to know.
Everything lines up, yeah, Mr. Chair, everything lines up to what we just brought you on all the core conforming amendments that were lined up to this. So this is really the budget side. Thank you.
Further discussion on the A47 amendment. If not, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Senator Mohammed did. Opposed? All motion prevails. Further discussion, further amendments, further whatever on the bill.
We need to do the spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet. Ah, yes, I forgot we haven't gotten to that point yet. Mr. Raymond, welcome to present the spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Excuse me, for the record, I'm Kyle Raymond, staff to the Human Services Committee. Excuse me. So today I'll be going through the spreadsheet. As I believe Senator Hoffman already mentioned, I've been asked to give a high-level overview, and I also have in my notes the changes from Human Services. Senator Hoffman has actually already talked about most of them, so I'll keep those pretty brief. So to start, for an overview of the spreadsheet, it's broken into, there's 3 sets of columns. The left-hand side includes descriptive information. The governor's position is in the center set of columns, and then the right-hand set of columns has all of the changes that were just adopted by the committee. So I'll start on page 1, lines 6 through 8. This gives, line 6 has the general fund total for the human services base budget included. And then line 7 shows the net change as provided in this bill. And then line 8 shows the net effect for the general fund as a result of each position, I should say. So then next, moving to lines 9 and 10, this shows the target of a reduction of 272 million in the first biennium and 430 million in the tails. This bill does meet that target, and you can see on line 13, the combined fiscal year 25, 26, and 27 amount equals the reduction of 272 million in the first biennium, and then that same line shows the tails reduction as well. So the remainder of the first page is summary information showing first the total net fiscal impact by fund, then breaking, starting on line 50 through the remainder of the first page, shows the agency totals by fund. So I'll now move to page 2, starting with the proposals. So I'll start with the first one on for the Department of Human Services on line 135. This is the governor's proposal that makes a number of nursing facility payment system changes. So the bill includes an amended version of the governor's proposal. So it does include the payment-driven payment model case mix classification system changes. And I will just note here the department provided technical feedback earlier this week that changed the cost of this proposal. So that is why there's a difference between the governor's and the Human Services proposal. So it fully funds the proposal. It also includes, the Senate position also includes repealing the automatic annual alternative payment system, property rate inflation, planned closure rate agreements, single bed incentives and layaways, a health insurance cap. And then the main difference between the two, the governor's and the Senate position, is that the governor's position included a 2% cap on operating expenses, and the Senate position includes a 4% cap. So altogether, this proposal in the Senate position would have, in the author's amendment would have a reduction of just over 48 million in the first biennium and just over 77.5 million in the tails. So next I'll move to line 151. So this establishes an age-friendly Minnesota council and also provides some additional funding for community and technical grants. So the main change, there's a change in this proposal from Human Services to reflecting the amendments before, that were just adopted. And it was simply that the fiscal 26 and 27 appropriations for the grants were eliminated. Moving next to line 160. So this is a proposal to adjust the nursing facility total care-related payment rate limit. This proposal results in a reduction of just under 21 million in the first biennium and just over 37 million reduction in the tails, and this is unchanged from Human Services. I'll move next to line 167. So this relates to funding for additional funding on top of base funding for critical access nursing facilities. And I'll just note here that the amounts decreased by about 4 million in the first biennium and increased by about 3 million in the tails. So that results in funding of 1.8 million in the first biennium and just over 6 million in the tails. So now moving to page 3, line 172, this is a governor's proposal to fund the Nursing Home Workforce Standards Board's rules. This is funded at the governor's level at 6,000 in the first biennium and just over 14.6 million in the tails. Moving next to line 180, so this is from Senate File 813. So this was a revised estimate there was a change from Human Services resulting from a revised fiscal estimate from the Department of Human Services. They included funding for the Office of Inspector General within the Department of Human Services, and Senator Hoffman included that in the amendments that were adopted. So that increases the cost of the proposal by roughly about $450,000 per biennium. So the total for that proposal would now be $754,000 in expense in the first biennium and just over $700,000 in the tails. So I'll next move to line 187. So this would fund the self-directed worker bargaining agreement, the SEIU agreement, and this is funded at the governor's level and remains unchanged. Actually, there was one change, to one of the canceled amounts. There was an underspend identified from a prior SEIU bargaining agreement for orientation spending, and that was increased, which you can see on page 4, line 218. It was increased by $80,000. Moving next to line 220, this was amended onto the bill in Human Services. At the time, there was not a fiscal estimate available. We have since received a fiscal estimate, and then a modified version of this proposal is included in the bill, and this is from Senate File 1146. And it is funded at just over $2 million in the first biennium and just over $2.3 million in the tails. So I'll move next to line 227. This is a proposal that establishes a provisional EIDBI provider license and also funds administrative oversight. So this, I'll just note that from Human Services, this proposal was reduced by roughly about half for the administrative funding, reduced by about $3.5 million in the first biennium and $3.7 million in the tails. And the total for that proposal is $7.5 million in the first biennium and just over $7 million in the tails. So next I'll move to page 5, line 258. So this is a proposal that was added on to Human Services. Again, we did not have the fiscal note information at the time. We since received that, and a modified version of that was included in the bill. This is what Senator Hoffman mentioned earlier, related to including swimming lessons under Family and Consumer Support Grants, Disability Waivers, CFSS. And this is for individuals with disabilities who are under the age of 12. So this proposal is funded at just over $2.3 million in the first biennium and just over $5.4 million in the tails. So next I'll move to line 277. So this is a proposal that would modify the nursing facility level of care eligibility criteria for CADI and BI waivers. So this proposal was amended in Human Services, but again did not have a fiscal estimate for the amendment that has since been received and incorporated into this proposal, and that this relates to providing additional assessment time. So this increases the funding in both biennia. So the net effect of this proposal is that it still reduces expected state expenditures by roughly $700,000 in the first biennium, and then a reduction of just over $49 million in the tails. So next I'll move to page 6, line 290. This is a governor's proposal that related to reducing expected disability waiver expenditures. So the governor's proposal included a number of different sub-proposals that were not included. The only one that was a lead agency residential share that's established. The governor's established it at 5%, and the Senate, the finance author's amendments included at a 2% residential share. Moving next to line 304, the governor's position reducing expected disability waiver expenditures for day and unit-based services. So this is included at the governor's level of reducing expenditures by just over 46 million in the first biennium and just under 114 million in the tails. I'll move next to line 317. So this is a proposal that uses CPI-U as a mechanism for future DWRS inflation adjustments and also increases the competitive workforce factor under DWRS. So this remains unchanged from human services, but and it is at the same level of reducing expenditures in the first biennium by just under 156 million in the first biennium and just over 194 million in the tails. So I'll move next to page 7, line 322. This is a governor's proposal that reduces expected disability waiver expenditures by limiting rate exceptions. So this is included it's at the governor's level, but there are two components to the proposal. One funded input rate monitoring that's not included in the bill before the committee. So the effect of this proposal is it would reduce expenditures by just over 51 million in the first biennium and just under 84 million in the tails. I'll move next to line 330. This is from Senate File 815, and it removes a training requirement to qualify for enhanced rate PCA or CFSS. So the department identified an interactivity with this and the bargaining agreement previously mentioned. So that cost was included in the proposal. So from Human Services, there was that change. So the amount for this proposal is just under 7 million in the first biennium and just under 36 million in the tails. So next I'll move to page 8. I'll move to line 383. So this is a governor's proposal that makes modifications to the Behavioral Health Fund. So the bill before the committee included some aspects of the governor's proposal, except for there was an increase in the county share, which was included in the governor's position and not in the bill before the committee. So that proposal would reduce expenditures by just over 3.5 million in the first biennium and just over 10.4 million in the tails. So I'll move now to page 9. First with line 404. So this was an amendment added in Human Services that didn't have a fiscal estimate associated with it. We've since gotten that estimate gotten the fiscal note, and it is a cost of $286,000 in the first biennium, and that amount is ongoing. Moving next to line 417. This was mentioned previously, the chair mentioned this previously, Senate File 1916. This relates to establishing a single administrative structure and delivery system pilot program. This relates to NEMT. This was a proposal that has received a fiscal note after the Human Services bill was moved out of committee. The cost of this proposal is $306,000 in the first biennium and just over $400,000 in the tails. Moving next to page 10, line 443. Here I'll just be noting a few that have changed, a proposal that have changed since Human Services. So this is from Senate File 1789 and provides additional funding for the Minnesota Board on Aging. So this was reduced by roughly about half. So the amount is now it's funded at about 1.8 million in the first biennium and 1.9 million in the tails. Moving to line 449, the Seeds We're Sowing grant. It was reduced from Human Services by about 500,000 in the first biennium, and the tails funding remained. So now it's funded at 500,000 in the first biennium and $1 million ongoing. Moving next to line 457, So this is a grant for the Boundary Waters Care Center Nursing Facility. This was modified based on actually updated information from the department that the funding provided in the first biennium would produce a tails cost, and that was incorporated into the proposal. The funding for this would be $250,000 in the first biennium and $125,000 in the tails. Moving next to line 461. So this has changed since Human Services. This relates to funding for regional and local dementia grants. So this is on top of the existing base funding. It's funded at $500,000 in the first biennium and just over $1.5 million in the tails. Moving to page 11, line 465. This is a proposal that provided funding to Catholic Charity Senior Dining Program. So the amount compared to Human Services was reduced by $300,000 in the first biennium to a total of funded at a level of $500,000 for fiscal year 26-27 and $800,000 in 28-29. Moving to line 488, this is a new proposal that just provides grant administration funding for a number of grants that were included. This is incorporating a technical feedback / request from the department that the number of grants included would need some administrative funding, and that was incorporated at a one-time cost of $213,000 in fiscal year 26-27. Moving next to moving to the next page, page 12. I'll jump down to line 525. So this was originally a governor's proposal that provided some grant and administrative reductions. So there were additional reductions included in the bill before the committee. So I'll start by just saying the total reduction in fiscal year 25 is just over $32 million. In the 26-27 biennium is $45.9 million, and then $6.2 million in the tails. So what's going on in this proposal is the Senate position takes the elimination of the local planning grants, and then there is a reduction or an elimination of CD peer specialist grants. So this is base funding. We were notified that from the department that some of that funding is split into two different sources and is provided to SUD-based grants. So that has been amended since Human Services. However, that's the only change since Human Services to this proposal. The other items included in this are eliminating the Safe Recovery Site grants. There was a general fund appropriation that is being canceled, and there was also administrative funding provided for that purpose as well. That is being canceled as well. There was a opioid fund, Safe Recovery Site appropriation of $3 million a year. So that is being canceled as well. And then $1 million of that is being transferred to the general fund. The next thing included in this proposal is there is a paid family medical leave premium reimbursement for direct care professionals to try to offset the premium costs. That there is $20 million in base funding for that is canceled, and then that same amount is transferred from the Family Medical and Benefit Insurance account to the general fund. Also included is the a cancellation of the Human Services Contingency Account, which was originally funded last session in 2024. So that appropriation is canceled, and then in the State Government Special Revenue Fund, and then that amount is transferred to the general fund. There is also a direct care and treatment cancellation of an advisory committee appropriation related to a bill that I'll touch on in a minute. The total for that is $482,000. basically, a separate bill changes DCT's agency structure and then repurposes these funds from the advisory committee to a new advisory council. I'll also point out the last two lines of this proposal that it cancels a community residential services transitional grant and also cancels a harm reduction grant. Moving next to line 566. So this was discussed earlier in committee, Senate File 2972. So this has a cost associated. Proposal has a cost associated with it to DHS of $212,000 in the first biennium and $826,000 in the tails. There's also a cost associated with the Department of Health as well, which I'll touch on in a minute. Moving next to page 14, line 573. So this is a new proposal that provides additional funding for the Department of Human Services for their legislative and budget team. So this is funded at just over 1.8 million in the first biennium and just over 2 million in the tails. So I'll now move on to the Department of Direct Care and Treatment. So starting on line 625, I'll just note that the operating adjustment is funded at the governor's level of just over 69 million, just under 70 million in the first biennium and just over 90.4 million in the tails. So I'll now move to page 15, line 646. So this relates to the cancellation I mentioned earlier. This proposal modifies Direct Care and Treatment's agency structure and fully funds the fiscal note at $912,000 in the first biennium, and that is ongoing. Next, I'll note on line 654. So this is an amendment adopted in Human Services that we later received a fiscal note for. That extends a task force in order to provide a report and recommendations related to mentally ill and dangerous commitment reform. So this is funded one time in the first biennium at $62,000. I'll note on line 680, so this is related to Senate File 2972, and this just includes an MDH Department of Health appropriation of $118,000 in the first biennium and $114,000 in the tails for administrative oversight. And the last one, I'll now skip a couple pages and go to page 17, line 834. This is a new addition, which I believe Senator Hoffman mentioned earlier. This is appropriation to the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and is for families and children opiate epidemic grant to Beltrami County. That concludes my remarks, and happy to take any questions.
Question, Senator Grayheim.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the walkthrough on the spreadsheet. You know, I was looking for a line item that would address the county's concerns about software. You know, with the changes, and I don't know if it would be in your committee or would be in Wickland's committee, but the counties have all complained about the software being so out of date, different programs, and I see on line 238.24, it talks about information technology appropriations. Can we just get a little background on what that is intended for? Is there any help on updating what kind of systems, what programs are they for? I know this has been a subject the 9 years I've been here, and we have funded kind of some things without a lot of success.
Yeah, oh, yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Yeah, there's 2 points. He's got it.
Mr. Raymond, go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Senator, so as I understand it, if you're referring to the first engrossment under the appropriations article, the IT appropriations generally, and then the receipts for systems projects, is that what you're referring to? Oh, perfect. So as I understand it, this has been boilerplate language that's been included in human services and HHS bills year after year. As to the specifics, I think it more generally, the topic does relate more to what's under Senator Wickland's jurisdiction, but I know that there are people from the department here that may be able to speak to your question more directly than I can.
Thank you, Chair. And, you know, I know the Met's Executive Steering Committee has met in February, and this ties into something that we cover in the Jobs Committee, which is paid family medical leave. And in that meeting, they state that they will need to update or capture a new income type to align with the new requirements with paid family medical leave, wage replacement payments. Those payments the person could receive and use reported changes for medical assistance or Minnesota Care. So the system needs to be updated, and this system is going live in just a few months. So what I want to know is if this system has been updated to make way for paid family medical leave, because all the testimony we heard in committee, the short committee we had on paid family medical leave, is that it's ready to go. So what I'm asking here is the Met system ready to go? And I apologize, Senator Wickland, if it is your committee and not Senator Hoffman's. I assume because it was in the language here, it was his, but maybe you can help answer the question.
Senator Wickland.
Mr. Chair, Senator Draheim, I don't have a status on Met's updates that pertain to the paid family medical leave. That hasn't come through my committee. We appropriated 2 years ago, we appropriated money for several systems projects, and one of them included Met's, but it was not specific to paid family medical leave. So I don't know the status of that, and I don't know if there'd be anybody here from the department on that. I will say that within my budget, there is money for work on the SSIS system. That's one that the counties have had a lot of input on prioritizing for DCYF to work on and address, because the county workers are struggling so much with that system because it's way out of date. So that one is one that is going to be accelerated by the additional funding that we've included in my bill. But we haven't allocated. The counties themselves would appreciate additional funding for IT projects as well, but we haven't been able to fund that in my bill. So that's a little bit of an update.
Chair.
Senator Draheim, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Wickland and Senator Hoffman. I don't know if there's anybody here that could help identify, this rolls out in a few months, and this will be a new income type, and according to the notes from the Executive Steering Committee, it clearly states that they need to update this system. And Deed tells us we're ready.
Elise Bailey's coming.
Perfect, thank you.
I personally like MS-DOS system myself with the green screen, don't you?
Welcome to the committee. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Marty. Members, Elise Bailey, Budget Director of the Department of Human Services. Senator Draheim, the department did get an appropriation at the time of the enactment of the paid family medical leave. The appropriation was, as you mentioned, as a result of changing our systems to be able to, differentiate that income from other income. It involves many systems in DHS because we have, within DHS and DCYF now, because we have multiple systems that impact the counting of income. Right now, I don't have like an update for you exactly where we're at in updating the systems, but my understanding is that we are working on it and we're working within the timelines required of implementation. But we can get back to the committee and certainly use Senator Draheim on exactly where the IT details are at. We don't have a minute person here at the hearing.
Senator Draheim.
I'll make it short, Chair. I apologize. The notes I have, or the meeting was February 25th, so exactly 2 months ago.
Not my jurisdiction.
And at that point, they had identified that it hadn't been done yet. And and you're pretty confident that this will be done in time by end of the year?
Chair Marty, Senator Draheim, I am personally not in the weeds enough to say
Fair enough.
this exactly will be done, but I will follow up with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you. You know what, this really, it's not our jurisdiction, so it's that boilerplate that we throw in there. Is there any reason, as long as you're here, is there any reason why we have to have that in there? Because if it causes, our good friend from, southern Minnesota to go,
Well,
hey, what are you doing?
if I could, Chair, Senator Hoffman.
Yeah.
It's not really so much about the paid family medical leave on its own. It's just, that will impact the income, and then
We're good.
the insurance, and there's a lot of effects there. And we have to be ready, and we have to train people. So that's why I'm concerned about it. That's really the only thing I found in your bill using the search tool, talking about technology and updates. So thank you.
Keep it. We're good.
Further discussion on the bill? Senator Dames.
Ready to take some more amendments?
No.
No?
Senator Dames, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Hoffman.
Let me get you to laugh, Gary.
Yes, I have the A48 amendment.
Senator Dames offers the A48 amendment. Thank you. Go ahead, Senator Dames.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this amendment deals with direct support professional certification pilot program. The Metropolitan Center for Independent Living shall establish a 3-year direct support professional certification pilot program in partnership with Anoka County, Dakota County, and willing post-secondary institutions to implement a direct support curriculum leading to the credential as certified direct support professionals. The subdivision 2 outlines the definitions, subdivision 3, the curriculum requirements, subdivision 4, the certification, subdivision 5, the accreditation and the criteria development, subdivision 6, evaluation, subdivision 7, the report. This is, we did do this in bill form, but I didn't get it in time in order to get a hearing on it. So one of the reasons that I'm requesting this amendment to this evening is the Metropolitan Center for Independent Living has received a $2.1 million grant from the Bush Foundation in order to help support this project, this
beautiful
pilot project. This project has developed a certification of direct support professionals over a 2-year period, and by the 3rd year seeks to train the workers to become certified direct support professionals from colleges that will provide this education. Metropolitan Center for Independent Living developed the curriculum and has a grant and worked with the DHS, DEED, PCA providers, and the SEI union and people who rely on PCAs to put that curriculum together. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Senator Hoffman if he has some comments on it.
Senator Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, absolutely love this. Thank you, Senator Daines. and I love this because of the fact that, remember about an hour ago, we were having a conversation about workforce, right? There's 53,000 job openings. Part of that is establishing what Jesse Gomez is doing in here is he's getting this tiered approach to it. Hence, Senator Dames, I love what you're doing here. Thank you for working on this. We are needing to get there's going to be some fiscal responsibility on our part, which is because of the fact that we have this enhanced rate, there's some enhancement stuff in there. And so I think I wish we would have had some fiscal notes in front of us, because I would say it's a friendly amendment. Now we're going to go with it. It is a friendly amendment, but I would put us out of balance. And so if we can keep this going and put it in the DS Abler Omnibus Act that's going to be on the Senate floor, and if we can get a fiscal by then. Does that make sense here? Because I love this, because you know what? And the other thing is Jesse Gomez went and he got private funding. He went and found private funding to help deal with the problem that exists for our most disabled and our elderly in the state of Minnesota. So hats off to everybody for that. So thank you, Senator Dames, for bringing this forward. I appreciate that.
And hopefully it won't be long and we'll have the fiscal note to Senator Hoffman, because we did request that, but I know things are really backed up right now. With that said, Mr. Chair, I'll withdraw the amendment, but hopefully we can work on this.
I would love this to come to the floor, or I mean, before we go, it'd be nice to have this position going into conference committee, because this is a worthy thing to do, and it is. And we're late in the ballgame on this, but you know what? It's never too late for doing good things for people, John. So thank you, Senator Dames.
Thank you, Senator Huffman. And Mr. Chair, I have the A49 amendment.
Senator Hoffman withdrew Senator Dames withdrew the A48 and now offers the A49 amendment. Senator Dames, well, you go ahead and start explaining the amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And the A49 amendment deals and is related to children, youth, and family licensing, directing the Commissioner of Children, Youth, and Families to develop a licensing framework for crisis nurseries. In my district, we have a nursery, and it's a crisis nursery, and they're having some trouble with some of the licensings that they're trying to accomplish. And so what this bill would do would be to come up with some structure for crisis nursery currently in operation that are licensed under Chapter 245A as a children's residential facility, and it provides safe short-term care for children whose caregivers face crisis. Crisis nurseries licensed under Chapter 245A as a child residential facility and under Chapter 142B as a special family child care must be allowed to continue to operate under those clauses until they expire on June 1st of 2026. This amendment also gives direction to the Commissioner of Children and Youth and Families crisis nursery license for crisis nursery licensing. The Commissioner of Children, Youth, and Families must develop a licensing framework for crisis nurseries that provides safe, short-term care for children whose caregivers face a crisis. The framework must include pathways for organization to become a licensed crisis nursery, background study and training requirements, and ways to reduce redundancy and resolve current conflicting requirements. In developing the framework, the Commissioner must work with stakeholders and with current crisis nursery organizations, and by January 15th, 2026, the Commissioner must submit a report to the chairs and ranking members of the legislative committees with jurisdiction over children, youth, and family licensing. The report must contain an overview of the licensing framework, a detailed explanation of the framework, and proposed legislation to make any statutory changes that are needed in order to implement the new licenses for crisis nurseries.
And like I say, in my district, I have one of these, but there's just a lot of back and forth on the licensing. There's a lot of clarity needs to be done, and this is something that's getting to be pretty important in many neighborhoods.
Senator Hoffman.
And this is one of those most beautiful moments when you look at what are we doing, and like in Minnesota, we have this Crescent Cove that this body had set up. It was the first time on the license. This is something that is brand new to what we're doing, and you're creating a respite, you're creating crisis nursery for some folks that are at the end of life and they're young children, right? I mean, this is something that we need to get behind. Elise Bailey from the department just said she's got this. Thank you. We just got this a couple days ago, if I recall, Senator Davis, I sent this to you. Once again, thank you for bringing this. We should be able to get an idea of what that cost factor is there on the licensing, and then I want this to go on the floor as well and go to the other body with it, because this is something. We were the first of one of 3 or 4 states in the nation to do something at Crescent Cove. And what Representative Torkelson and what you had talked to me about is exactly doing that, but in, I can't believe this, Herman the Germantown, New Ulm of all places, right? Isn't that where it's going? Yep. Was that New Ulm? Sleepy Eye. New Ulm. It's New Ulm. Yes. I was trying to be funny, but in light of that, this is really a good bill. And if you will continue to work with me, because again, you saw me, I had DHS in here saying we want to make this a priority for this. And thank you. Thank you for bringing this. This is needed.
And we do have a fiscal note coming on it, so.
Yes.
If we can get together and try to get this worked out, I'd be willing to withdraw the amendment at this point so we can further work on it. I'll withdraw the amendment, Mr. Chair.
I see the 3 people behind you, Mr. Dames, they're writing down what I just said with my thumbs up. So Senator Marty, that's good. This is really this is the kind of stuff we should do what we're doing, John. And we shouldn't be having this, well, I wonder how much this is going to cost, because it is. But this is unfortunately the world we live in on how much it's going to cost. But it is a priority for us to get something on there for that. And so thank you, Mr. Senator Dames, for bringing this. So sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Further discussion on the bill. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to offer the 50 amendment.
A 50 amendment from Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while the amendment's being passed out, this establishes a process for qualified hospitals to get infants with severe disabilities and rare diseases the care they need immediately after birth. It fills the gap between when a newborn is born and when they can get MA to cover the cost of care. This language is Senator Bolden's Senate File 1175 as amended by her. I've spoken with her. I've spoken with Senator Hoffman about this amendment, and she is on board with us offering it today. Mr. Chair, we're talking about, we're taking a best guess at what this will cost based on the feedback from the advocates for this bill. And so how we're balancing it out is we are taking from the 8 additional FTEs that are in the bill for DHS and legislative and budget staff. As I understand, and I'll allow Senator Hoffman to correct me if I'm wrong, but we requested a fiscal note on this and we have not received it, and which is why we had to go with the best estimate. And we funded a study by DHS that was due in January of 2025 that we have not received, nor have we received the draft legislation as far as I know. And whether Senator Hoffman wants to take these questions or whether DHS wants to take these questions, I think it's important for us to understand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Pratt. Yeah, the presumptive eligibility question is something that we do need to take a look at and are taking a look at, and I think that's why I quickly, as soon as you were having the conversation, when you approached me earlier, I thought Ms. Bailey would be here to be able to get to that question on the dollar amount that you're there. So if that would be Mr. Chair, Ms. Bailey.
Chair Marty, Senator Pratt, unfortunately, we have been working with the bill authors on this bill. I think we just met with Senator Bolden, I believe, the other day on this bill. and if I have the correct version of the bill, and it just is not in a place where it is fiscal notable. There's a lot of details that need to be worked out in order for us to fully be able to effectuate the changes proposed in the bill. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're getting to the end of the line here in session and still not in a place where we have draft language that we could fiscal note an accurate cost. And so that's why it's stalled out at this point.
Senator Hoffman.
So what other options do we have regarding, because one of the things that we need to do here, and this is something we want to, we need presumptive eligibility on this piece, right? I mean, we all can shake our head at that. And this is what other options exist for us. And maybe Mr. Nauman, because I promised you and John Marty that I would come to you with a hit the target, right? And so this is one of those unknowns on this. I'm looking for what options exist for us. Is there, Senator Marty, is there a way that maybe Mr. Nauman, Ms. Bailey, what other ideas exist?
Mr. Nauman.
Mr. Chair and Senator Hoffman, as I understand what's in front of you in this amendment is some pricing based on estimates from advocates.
Correct.
Am I correct about that?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
I think that's, Ms. Bailey, I think that's what's in the amendment. We don't, I believe, have a fiscal note that's been completed at this point. I think I'm looking at Mr. Raymond, he's nodding his head.
Yeah, Mr. Nauman, that is correct. That is not the cost of the bill. And furthermore, the bill is not in a place that the department would be able to effectuate the changes.
Ms. Bailey, what does it take to get it to a place where the department can effectuate the fiscal note?
Chair Marty, so we've done a lot of working with the advocates on this bill. We've talked to other states. We've talked to the state of Wisconsin. To my knowledge, we are unaware of any states that do what currently this bill is doing. And so we have not yet kind of figured out a path forward. I do have some colleagues in the room as well who have more details on like the details behind the sticking points. I unfortunately am the one who knows that we can't fiscal note it and that the costs in the amendment are not correct.
Senator Pratt and then Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Mr. Chair, this was a governor proposal in 2023. We put $1.4 million into this study that was due on January 1st of this year. So we've had well over 18 months to get this done. And now we're finding out that we can't do a fiscal note on this. To me, this should have been discussed well before the report was due. And Senator Bolden has taken a very bold step here. Yes, and so, Mr. Chair, we are taking a swing at this. I don't know how this thing can't be estimated in a fiscal note, and yet we know that the costs are and the assumptions are off. I don't know how you can make that assertion when you've just said that you don't have enough information or the right information to build a fiscal note. And my guess is if we take this money out of DHS's new FTE, which they've been asking for, and Mr. Chair, you know that we've already added over 1,000 FTE in the last 2 years. I don't know that we need any more state employees. I would bet that we could get this thing worked out in short order if these FTEs are on the block. If there's a concern that these FTEs could be cut, I bet we can get this done. And so the intent of this is to make it balanced. I think our assumptions around the cost are pretty close because we have an estimate of how many kids each year are born with these conditions. And it's probably right around 24 or so from the information that was shared with me. And so I would like to pass this amendment, let's see if DHS can figure out a way to resolve the problem so that we can get a reasonable fiscal note.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Hoffman, I really appreciate your bill and all the work that you've done on this proposal.
See my gray hair?
And I know it is, it's after 11 p.m. and
I'm just
for
waking up.
members and the staff, right? We've been here for a long time and don't want to belabor the point. But I will say that it is perhaps a follow-up conversation I'd like to have with the Department of Human Services about why this is not something you can attach a fiscal note to. I'm going to follow Senator Hoffman's lead here on this, but it is, we've dealt with presumptive eligibility before. I don't understand the barrier. So I understand you're just here representing the department in that answer, but I think a follow-up conversation would be great. Thank you.
Ms. Bailey.
Yeah.
Chair Marty, Senator Murphy, and Senator Pratt as well to your comments. Of course, DHS runs the Medicaid program, and the Medicaid program has federal requirements. And part of the federal requirements are when we determine a person eligible for MA under the eligibility category of disability, they either qualify under Social Security requirements, or we have what we call the SMRT team, or the, I'm missing the acronym, it's too late at night. The SMRT team does the disability determinations, but we have to go by the Social Security requirements. And so some of the rub here is ensuring that the changes in the bill align with what the federal requirements are. So it's not a mere us not wanting to do the fiscal note, not putting work into doing the fiscal note. It's more of us making sure that this is something that we can actually effectuate into law or into practice, and that it aligns with our federal requirements. So that is the biggest kind of hang up. To speak to the department's legislative report, that wasn't about this bill. It was about broadly, what are the options that the state has to kind of think about presumptive eligibility. So it really has, this may be one small option, and I don't know if that's within the report, but this isn't what the report is or what the Gov's rec was on. That was a broad report related to options on presumptive eligibility.
I'm kind of wondering why there can't be a guess. I mean, is the fear that the children would not qualify for under Social Security stuff, so that we'd have, nothing would be covered? Or I'm not getting what the issue is. Because again, I guess the fiscal note's been in process for several months. And you're saying it's just maybe somebody else from the department, but I'm not understanding why they can't tighten up their estimates of how many people, everything like that.
Well,
Chair Marty, we're all puzzled. I mean, I guess I'm looking for better help on that.
Chair Marty, we have done a lot of work on this bill. We've provided a lot of technical assistance to the author to make it work. We generally can't fiscal note when it actually can't align with what the federal rules are. We don't do assumptions in that case on how many kids would be affected because we don't think that it aligns with what we're able to do as a Medicaid agency. And so that is the rub. It's not that we don't agree with the policy or we have concerns about the policy. It's more of making sure that it is something that we can implement.
Sarah Hoffman.
I need to know, Mr. Chair, what options exist within that realm. I get this. I mean, and this is why, if you notice also, we extend fiscal note request after fiscal note request after fiscal note request, right? Because we do something that I don't see any other state do, which we drop 7,000 bills in the hopper. I don't guess making that up. But I've seen firsthand what a part-time legislature does. This is going to be my pitch. Human Services is no longer a 3 months and there you go kind of thing. This is stuff that is year-round, 24/7. The people to the right and to the left of me, watching them work in and out, right? And I'm not, please don't, I'm just going to tell you this. I'm advocating for the fact that they're underpaid. There should be a larger union involved. I mean, I'm just that, and I'm trying to be funny, John, but I'm not. I'm absolutely serious. The need is there. And so what other options exist other than, because DHA, I've seen fiscal notes, oh, it's going to cost X amount. When you tell me we don't do dynamic scoring, that's a bunch of garbage, because we did dynamic scoring when we did smoke cessation and we did dynamic scoring on seat belts in the state of Minnesota, right? So that still leads me to this question then, Senator. What are my options to do this? Because I promised you and Eric and Majority Leader Murphy I would give you a balanced budget, and I've done that. I like where he's going, because presumptive eligibility is something we must do, because you know what? It's a cost savings in the long term. You get presumptive eligibility at the very get-go, and all of a sudden your saving go up long term, right? That's a cost savings. So I don't know, other than how can we ride this into a rider? What, you know, can I do a school shift, you know, Eric Nauman? Can I mean, what other options exist for us? Because this is important stuff to do, and I don't think saying we're waiting for a budget analysis on something that is, Eric, I think even Senator Wickland said, well, it's not that many people. We're talking, you know, it shouldn't be that much, right? I mean, that was the questions that were out there. So I don't know if that gives you an answer, John, but it clearly gets to, this is something that's important to the mission and vision that we do. So is that helpful?
Maybe. Trying to explore things. Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And a couple of points. I understand the report was broader than just this, but it doesn't remove the fact that that report is 4 months late. And I've had a chance to meet with our nonpartisan staff. They were asking for technical assistance back in January, and the feedback that I got from them was that the request for technical assistance from the agency was effectively ignored. And that's what's the frustration here today. We have been asking for this technical assistance. We have been asking for this clarification, and we have not received the support that we need from the agency, which leads us here today. And we are still 4 months late on this report. And all we're hearing is, well, it's not workable. And yet we're not getting the partnership that you seem to indicate that you've been giving us. That's not what I'm hearing from our team. So what are we left to do? I think we're left to do what we've done here. We have an estimated number of kids. Senator Hoffman, you looked at that chart that I received yesterday. So we know how many kids on an annual basis will fall into this need. We haven't even explored whether this could be a state level program, and if we really need to run it with the federal match, or we can just run it until these kids qualify, and what that cost is. But we need that technical assistance. We need the information. And I'm not sure that the agency has given it the priority that the legislature intended. When we gave you $1.4 million, and 18 months to get a report done, we expected it done. I'm at a loss, Mr. Chair. I don't know what's going to change between now and next week when this bill is on the floor that hasn't been able to be done in the last 4 months. And I think it's up to us to take a swing at this thing, and if it's unworkable by the department, they've got a couple of days to get back to us. But I think now we have to light the fire of urgency underneath the department, or try to balance it out the way we've done.
Mr. Nauman.
Mr. Chair, I've understood from some of the testimony that the challenge is understanding federal, whether the feds permit this to happen. I'm curious whether or not it's knowable, Ms. Bailey, if we stepped aside from the federal requirements and provided just state-only funding, what the price would be. Is that knowable?
And can I just add can I add some clarification?
Please.
She was actually, Miss Bailey was with Senator Bolin yesterday. So, I mean, let's be careful how we, you know, she is working on this stuff, and she was with Senator Bolin yesterday having a conversation about this. So this is all new information on that. And I just, you know, so this is the right person to have at the right time, at the right table to ask that question to about how we're going to do it. So I just want to make sure you guys are clarified that she was and she is conversation with Bolin. So, Senator.
Ms. Bailey had more comments, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I think we were just trying to figure out if, setting aside what the federal requirements, could we price it as a state-only proposal? Is that a doable thing?
Chair Marty, Mr. Nauman, the federal requirements is basically, my understanding is the holdup. Yes, I mean, so if it were a state-only funded program, then the conversation would be different. I don't have numbers available for you today, but we can certainly look into what that would be.
Monday. I love that.
Sir,
Isn't that interesting, Senator? I mean, it's and the feds always, right? When you see one Medicaid plan in the state, you've seen one Medicaid plan in the state. You've heard that before, right? And I always find it, if we did, it would be easier for us to just do a state, probably assumption, right? I don't know. Do you think we could get that by Monday? Is that, you think somebody could do that by Monday? Is that a possibility?
We'll try.
We'll try. If anybody can try. And if that's the case, Eric, what are you thinking? I'm thinking
What if,
bring it to
Senator
the
Hoffman,
floor.
what if we tried to do some way where we don't have an answer, put it in with some level of funding? I don't know how much Senator Pratt was taking out of the other stuff, but put it in some way, and if it's not working out, if it looks like that's not going to work, we take it out in conference.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think it would be something that we could probably find. I mean, yeah, I mean, but I mean, two things, right? We want to balance this budget here. Presumptive eligibility is something we know saves the system. If we did dynamic scoring, if the state of Minnesota would finally realize how important it is, for example, there's one bill in here, Josh Berg is going to save the system $120 million, and we're saying, okay, we're going to cost $9 million to educate. We don't get to book the 120 savings, John, which, by the way, you still owe me $178 million on top of that. We have to book that $9 million that it's going to cost. So in this case, let's see what we can get on that, and then let's fit this thing in Monday, Eric. That's the best I can do, unless you want to put an X by X and allow it if Eric thinks this fits the mustard of what the rules and the Constitution say we're supposed to do on targets. I mean, it's up to you guys.
Senator Murphy, comments on it?
I'm just here to have fun.
Well, because we don't have a fiscal note, Senator Pratt has found a funding source that probably doesn't, cover the bill. And of course, we're talking about Medicaid, which is a foundation of our healthcare system and perhaps under threat by the federal government, but we don't have to talk about that right now. I want to respect the work of Kyle Raymond and hear from Eric Nauman, but I understand the purpose of this, and if it gets us into the next stage of a conversation by adding it, and then we find out that we just can't hold it within the target, it comes out. I don't know if that is more, if that creates kind of pressure that the committee is looking for in terms of finding a solution. I think that's what Senator Pratt is after, but I do think we have to be eyes wide open that it could be the case that we all want to do this, and in the end we can't afford it, but we don't know that yet, and that's the work that needs to be done. And those are the kind of things that happen in the last few weeks of the legislature.
Senator Wickland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I guess I just want to caution you too that, asking for something on a short timeline and this weekend, I have also got provisions. I'm supposed to grab my bill up on Monday. I have provisions that I'm also requesting assistance from Ms. Bailey's team. And I think if you could look at it from the perspective of trying to find a reasonable timeline for this addition, this amendment tonight, that doesn't, negatively impact the ability for them to get work done that I really need done to be able to present my budget on Monday.
Senator Hoffman.
When do you need, I mean, to my point about this 120 days doesn't do justice to the state of Minnesota anymore. But that's a whole different conversation. But having said that, and knowing she's short-staffed, absolutely, and I don't mean that it's because there's less government. It's better to have less government, right? Just like we're not making any cuts, John. We're just going to cut the caps, right? Is there any reason why we can't extend out human services to be later in the week or maybe even next week? I mean, you guys laugh at me, but I'll tell you what, I'll be the last one laughing. It's like Ronnie James Dio song. Okay, I thought, are you talking to me, Eric Pratt? I sent you a meme, by the way.
Mr. Nauman.
Mr. Chair and committee members, I will just offer a couple of things that I think we've been able to at least put together with respect to the conversation you all have been having, and I hope this is helpful. It appears from the language that I'm seeing here that Senator Pratt has identified about $1 million a year and set that in as a price for accomplishing the task that is identified in the amendment. What is unknown is the population in question, the total size of the population, and how much that population would cost to provide these services. And I know that I'm vastly oversimplifying that, but I'm doing that on purpose. What we don't know is the price higher than what than the revenue source, or than the appropriation that is being reduced in the bill that ostensibly provides that for this particular purpose. And maybe it's lower, maybe it's not, and that's where the risk lies, because at the end of the day, I suspect if you push this amendment onto the bill and pass it, that the agency will endeavor and will provide a price, and that we may be out of balance relative to the targets. That's a choice for this committee to make. But it comes with some risk.
Because we're not going to, I mean, Senator Wickland's trying to get her fiscal notes too.
Yeah,
And the money we're taking from is for the staff to help make the fiscal notes happen faster in the future. It is ironic. I mean, we could.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm serious about the timeline. I mean, now we've now put our staff up on it, and I'm just looking at them, and I know what they work because they are understaffed. The department, and the last time you looked, you look at the size of the budget and who the people that were supposed to take care of. But and please don't laugh at me. I'm being very serious about. For the sake of human beings, to get Senator Wickland what she needs this weekend, Monday, can you look at a next, I'm willing to forego it till a Friday or a Sunday. Drahan will come up on a Sunday, next Sunday. I know. I'm just looking at the timeline on that because I know how hard Elise Bailey and what she has to do in conjunction with what Wickland needs. You're talking about these guys spending the next whole weekend.
I'm worried about their health for getting not enough sleep with all this stuff.
True. Thank you, John. Now, if we had a single health care system in the state of Minnesota, we could have a different conversation. But I got you smiling.
And everybody here is tired too. We're trying to figure out how. Go ahead, Senator Drahan.
you know, I think we're all in the same place. We're just trying to figure out how to get there. And just for today's sake, could we just add some oral language into the amendment that says up to $1 million, just so we're in balance to get to the floor? And then that'll provide a few extra days, and then leadership can decide what they want to do when we get to the floor. But to me, we're spinning our wheels right now. And obviously, it's a worthwhile project, and we've waited 18 months to get here. So I don't think we should forget about it or not act on it. But my recommendation would, if nonpartisan staff is okay with it, is just to put up to $1 million on it, just to get it out of committee. And then on the floor, we can make a decision if it belongs in the bill or if it doesn't. I think there's bipartisan support for the concept. It's just figuring out how to do it. So that would be my recommendation if it is plausible.
For the sake of the staff, if we did such a thing like that and we gave till conference committee, giving another couple of weeks, your heaviest load will be finished after Senator Wickland's bill and the same things in the House are reported out. Would there be more chance to get, are we going to have numbers before it would get to conference committee?
So, Mr. Chair, if you'll permit me, I don't know that this isn't exactly responsive, but this is the program that's being envisioned here is a forecasted program. And so we'd almost have to take this and turn it into a grant program in order to accomplish what Senator Draheim has in mind. So in some respects, we're taking a direct appropriation in the Pratt Amendment and sourcing that into a forecasted program. And my worry is that we are creating a forecast grab, essentially, if the price isn't right, isn't priced properly. Senator Hoffman's smiling at me.
It's Johnny's forecast grab. I promised Senator Marty no forecast grabs this year, but no, seriously, this is something that we should do, and I'm glad. Thank you for the options. The other one is if we do something we can always amend something on the floor.
If it stays within the targets, you can.
Correct. That's the whole issue here. We know it's there, but I don't want to force these guys to spend now the weekend doing one little thing when we know we have a little bit of time between now and conference committee. That is June 30th? Is that when we're going to get out of here? I mean, it's like, I'm glad you smiled at that, John. But or Senator Marty, I got to be formal. We're in the
Yes,
Senate over
Senator
here.
Hoffman, yes.
Senator Liskey just said grab that forecast just to let you guys know. So.
Okay. Senator Murphy.
I was talking with Mr. Nauman and, of course, listening to Senator Draheim with the conditional language and just listening to the committee, right, and how quickly this group moved to the value of exploring this. And I worry that we add it and we push the staff to try and figure out, does $1 million cover this or not? We find out that it doesn't, and so then we're out of balance. And then we have to take it out. Does that become an easy removal? Or do we end up rewriting Senator Hoffman's bill on the floor because we really want to keep this in, and so we start trading things out and we get stuck? That's the part I'm worried about. Because I have to imagine it's going to cost more than $1 million.
That's one issue.
But
it's easy.
Senator Hoffman's reaching a conclusion.
Well, yeah,
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair and Madam, thank you, Aaron. You just got to count to 34. That's the magic number, you know. It's like George Bush said, you got to count to 34. That's not the process itself is fairly easy. I mean, I'm thinking there's a couple of different avenues to get to that point which gets us to, because everything starts all over again in conference committee. I mean, no matter what we do, and depending upon what y'all on finance, when we finally get some real, the targets, the joint targets by June 30th, that would be I'm glad somebody's laughing here. But it's not. It's just sophisticated moving, which is easy to do, right? So it's, does that make sense to you? So I think what I guess I'm saying is our committee has always been flexible because we are driven by purpose, not necessarily the political piece. And it's like, I'm okay to, whatever y'all think we should do. If you want to work with it, I'm fine saying to Eric, look, let's take this. If we don't have it for the floor, we're going into conference committee, and this is something that we could get some agreement on. That is, if you guys are getting us some more money rather than cuts, because if it's easier for us to stay at 700 million cuts versus going to 1.3 billion or 1.5 billion, that would devastate. You talk about the angst that y'all feeling in here when we were talking just an hour ago. Oh my God, it's going to be just absolutely worse. So
that's
let them talk, John. I mean, it sounds like they're
working on something.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the workload and my question is there going to be an ability in a week or so to have numbers, or we're still not going to know because question about the federal stuff and how much it would be without the federal support?
Chair Marty, my concern is that we would need to work with the author on adjusting the bill. At what point will the state grant end and Medicaid begin? Because it's really signing a child up for a healthcare product. So it's a complex bill. It's not just a simple grant. I would also say it would take human beings at DHS to effectuate whatever changes are in this bill, and it likely will be more than the source you're taking it from in the spreadsheet, not counting the programmatic costs. So it will be more than $1 million a year is my concern. My second concern is the timing and making sure that the language, we have time to work with the author over the weekend and the coming days to get it into a place that sufficiently, works when it comes to having a state-only fund and when the federal funds kick in. Lastly, I would say, our staff are overworked, and that is the challenge of getting fiscal notes. And we have been working 7 days a week for 5 months straight. And so that is kind of the reason Chair Hoffman put those resources in his bill to begin with. So we don't have the staff to effectively work with bill authors, to work with you all, and to get you the fiscal notes that you're requesting. And I'll be honest about that. I wish that I could do all the fiscal notes at the time that you need it, and that you have all of the bills in front of you to choose which ones to go with. But as even Chair Wickland mentioned, that isn't the case. You're waiting for things. It's because we don't have enough people to do it. So I will stop rambling.
No, it's good. To that point, we should listen to that point. There's a markup of bills we've been waiting. We always say that, and every year, John, I've come in front of you and said, well, we're still waiting on these bills, but let us move forward, and if they don't come, we'll knock them off. It was the same thing we did this year too, right? It's just part of the process, Senator Marty. So it doesn't sound, this is really not as easy as what I thought. I have to ask for some options, and it's like, I would rather, and Eric, I'll go, we have to do this, but all of a sudden I'm hearing some things that are outside of the purview of what we can control. And it's like, do we wait until the floor? Do we wait until conference committee? That's a question, I guess, Eric, to you.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the information I got from the Rare Disease Council is that we're going to have 30 kids test positively annually. Of those 30 kids, approximately 42% will qualify for Medicaid, which leads us down to roughly 13 kids.
That was the number we had.
And without without this presumptive coverage, 54 days of disability, this Medicaid would back, I don't fully understand this, but back pays about 30 days.
Yeah.
We didn't just pick $1 million because it was a nice round number, right? As I told the majority leader, this was a scientific wild ass guess, not just some number that we pulled out because it sounded good. It's getting late. I think we've had a robust discussion on this, much more robust. Ms. Bailey, I didn't mean it to be a personal attack, but when I hear from our nonpartisan staff that they reached out in January and you know, they felt like their request for technical assistance and request was essentially ignored. I do find that very concerning, and I appreciate that you were working with Senator Bolden yesterday, but it doesn't cover the last 4 months, and I'm not suggesting that your staff's not working hard, but I think, Mr. Chair, it's probably best that we just withdraw this amendment at this point in time. And, you know, like I said, this was I'll let Senator Bolden work within the majority caucus on this now, but I think we've had a good discussion. I think we found a funding source. And I'm sorry, Senator Hoffman, I disagree with you. We hired we created 1,000 new state employee positions last year, and I can't believe we're coming back and asking for 8 more. So, you know, somewhere along the line, I think the executive branch has to do a better job of balancing their workload. We can't just keep saying yes and we'll add more FTE. So I'll go ahead and withdraw the amendment for now, Mr. Chair, and we'll just continue the discussion.
And I think, thank you, Senator Pratt withdrew the amendment, and Senator Bolden and Ms. Bailey, as soon as you get done with Senator Wickland's stuff, which I know, again, I know the hours you and our nonpartisan fiscal staff are doing as well. With that, that amendment's been withdrawn. Any other amendments, further discussion? Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question and concern for Senator Hoffman. I had it written down on line 126.21 of the bill. We are eliminating a task force that was just created in 2024. And I was wondering if Senator Hoffman could explain why this task force is being eliminated.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Pratt. That was the task force that Senators Limmer and Senator Dibble put together. And if you'd like to go in the weeds on why, I think Senator Kroon would probably have a good idea to use Senator Pratt. Basically, the task force, let's just say, fell away from the guidance that we Senators Limmer and Senators Dibble were expecting them to do. Can I say that? Does that help?
And I believe that Senator Dibble okayed getting rid of this, yeah.
I'm looking back there. Yes, that is correct.
Further discussion on the bill.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Senator Hoffman, this was not because you needed to cut $400,000 to make your target. This was for another reason.
Yes, Mr. Chair, to Senator Pratt's, yes, that is correct.
Further discussion on the bill.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Senator Hoffman, I had a constituent reach out to me on this just today. Mm-hmm. He was concerned that many on the task force, and this is the let me just make sure I've got the right name of it. The task force on guardianship. Mm-hmm. You know, he's been watching it and feels like it hasn't had a chance to really get off the ground. You know, with just a couple of meetings, and this thing started started up yet this year. He's, I don't know how we can make that determination. That's already kind of gone awry. And he's very concerned as someone who has an adult child with special needs. He's very concerned about making sure that this task force has a chance to work and be effective.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Chair, and thank you for that bit of information. And that's what we had hoped when Senators Limmer and Senator Dibble approached us last year, I believe. You can get Bryce to give you some more information on that, but that was our hope too, Eric, and that wasn't happening with what. And so maybe if you talk to Limmer and Dibble, they can reignite another reason why, because it was something that those two had been working on for years, right? And so I hear your friends, the parent, absolutely hear him well. So thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Pappas asked us to vote.
Don't I get final 15 minutes?
You get final 2 minutes because we have to have a vote to extend the debate if it goes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for giving us the ability to work on what we think is the most important issues in the state of Minnesota. And I appreciate this committee and the work they do. And looking for a follow-up, Senator Dames, do not forget what we talked about. We will be in work together. So thank you,
Thanks
Mr.
for
Chair.
the good work in putting together a very difficult bill, and thanks to all your staff.
Can you know what, can I put that out, that the two people here, you got Elise Bailey here at the department, absolutely heads up. This guy, better than Eric could ever have imagined, to steal him from the state of Washington was a smart thing to do. And then, of course, Liam Monahan. I mean, we have, the state's very lucky and blessed to have folks like that are doing their work. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Pappas moves Senate File 3054 as amended be recommended to pass and instruct staff to make technical and conforming changes. Is there any further discussion of that motion? Not all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. With that, thank you, Senator Hoffman and all your staff. And this committee, we are.
Thank you.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just as we've been doing, we've had a busy day today. I was wondering if Mr. Nauman could give us just a brief summary on where we sit along the bottom line.
Sure, I'd be more than happy to do that. So, members, I'll just cut to the chase on this. You had the Human Services Bill today. You had the Judiciary and Public Safety Bill. It does seem like a lifetime ago, but that was today. And the transportation bills. The Judiciary bill had positive targets of a little over $100 million in each biennium. The transportation bill had some negative targets, 200 and 132 in the tails. And this bill that you just concluded, a negative 272 and a negative 430. So what that means is on balance, the budgetary balance in fiscal year 2029 is now a negative $1.745 billion without inflation.
And Mr. Chair?
Senator Pratt.
I just want to reiterate that, even as we saw in this budget, we're continuing to add state employees when we're asking, when we're pushing more and more down on our local governments, our counties. And as we've heard from our counties, the budget that we are passing is going to end up being the largest property tax increase in Minnesota history, affecting every family. It's going to affect homeowners, and it's going to affect renters as those property taxes get passed along. So I just continue to share my concern with you that this is not necessarily wise and responsible budgeting.
I think Senator Hoffman put together a very good bill, and just for the committee's sake, we are not meeting tomorrow. We will not meet till Monday. I'm not sure when it is, but we will send out notice if it hasn't been posted already. With that, this committee is adjourned, and I hope people have a good rest of the weekend.